Now we're recording. I'll put it on Rumble when we're done. So it'll be ready by morning for you to share. Yeah, I got to the end of that.
Long.
Hey, I got to the end of that video, of that first video of Gene Keating's, and when they read that section on the 4490 form, I said, "Holy crap! That proves what I say. It's not fraud. They publish everything and tell you everything.
Yep.
You just gotta read." I actually was talking to someone the other day. I said, I honestly don't have a problem being the registered agent. He told me something, though, and it makes a lot of sense. He said, technically, they did set this system up for our benefit because it's our country. The registered agent was only a stepping stone. It was not meant for us to use it for the rest of our life. It was only a stepping stone till we learn how to handle our commercial affairs. And guess what? We haven't learned that yet. So we're watching the debt clock go to $30 trillion. We're blaming the government, and it's our own damn fault.
Yep.
Because they can't balance the books. They can't balance the books because we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
Amen to that.
And I've done some processes. I've seen some things. And now what I've been learning in the last 8 months has made me rethink everything I've done and a lot of the things I've learned. And I think if you're not willing to have that attitude, you come to the point where you're no longer teachable.
Yeah, you got to stay open.
So ultimately, we only have a credit system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go and get a mortgage,
Yourself up. I can barely hear you.
Ultimately, we only have a credit system.
Yes.
There is no money. And if we go get a mortgage or a loan, that lender, based on partial disclosure, accesses the credit, which is ours by way of the trust, and they can do a 1099-A because we abandon the claim on the credit.
Yes and no. You've all heard about HJR 192, that all the debts are prepaid.
Right.
Well, and yes, there are some out there that have made the statement that HJR 192 was repealed.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it was, but it was reenacted immediately in another act. All they did was change the codes.
Yeah.
Okay. When the thing of there is no money is a partial truth, not a complete truth. You've got money of accounts and money of exchange. And you have a term called lawful money. What is the lawful money today? The lawful money today is notes and securities when you take it to its simplistic terms. Everything is either a promissory note or a security.
Hey, Jeff, mute while you're not talking because it's causing an echo.
Got it.
Thank you.
And if you study the term legal tender means a payment in lieu of money. In other words, money being gold and silver.
So, yes, HGR 192 is definitely repealed, but it's repackaged under positive code of Title 31 as well as Title 50, which is not positive code, but U.S. statutes at large support that. And really, between those two pieces of code is your remedy for discharge. Is that correct?
Yes, and really, it's not really discharge. It's the point of who is going to report the tax. The corporations get these $1 billion+ tax returns, and it's not really tax returns. You're correct when you say abandoned credit. The mortgage, for an example, you sign a power of attorney. The power of attorney gave the bank the ability to create accounts in quote unquote your name. And I use that term loosely because it's not really your name. It's the estate's name. Okay. Now, they give you sign a promissory note. That promissory note made you a third party investor. They don't tell you this. So then you turn around and think you owe the payment to the investment when you already paid for everything. They do not put it in the REMIC because the REMIC is the investment vehicle. So they don't report the tax. They turn around and tell you owe the tax. So what do? You pay the tax with every one of your payments. When the W-4 actually turns around and reports to the government who you gave the security to and what the value of the security is upon maturity. And watch how fast they drop that note. Because they don't want to be liable for the tax.
So in that frame, which security are you speaking to again?
It doesn't matter if it's the promissory note on a mortgage,
right?
the promissory note on a credit card payment, credit card application, the promissory note for a car loan. It doesn't matter. They're all promissory notes. And without your signature, it has no value. Now, you can't exactly use that argument. They call that the vapor money theory. But it's still true by law. You are the one issuing the credit.
And they're the ones hypothecating our signature and monetizing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because why? Everybody thinks they are signing their name. No, you're signing on behalf of the trust. Go look at your checkbook and get a magnifying glass. Your personal checkbook says what? On the signature line, authorized representative. What's another term for authorized representative? Registered agent.
Which is dispensing
What's
the
the
tax
duty of a
credit.
registered agent? To notify the principal.
So they're dispensing these
What are we
tax
not
credits
doing?
that we aren't claiming. So they're
Claiming is one way to look at it. So guess what? The corporations get away tax-free. We are liable for the taxes by volunteering.
right.
And we volunteer through ignorance.
So what about the securities that are not disclosed, such as in a court case?
You just got to know how the system works. I did this the other day in a traffic ticket. When she asked, was I the name, the clerk, I said, ma'am, that name is owned by the United States, and they are the secured party in this matter. And I meant to say registered agent, I went back and listened to the video. I actually said beneficiary because what I said after I said beneficiary applies to the registered agent. But what I said is I am just the beneficiary, and it is my duty to notify the principal of anything that interferes with its interest. Well, that's what the registered agent does. I meant to say registered agent. And what did she do? She come back a minute after putting me on hold and says, well, that matter's been sealed and dismissed. Because she knew I was about to file papers as the agent for them to be liable for the tax. I didn't argue the ticket, never called it a ticket. I just said, hey, it's a debt instrument.
So have you done that with things that you've had out there for a while?
That's the first time I've made that argument.
Okay.
But I am not the only one that's made similar arguments that I personally know.
On existing infractions or whatever.
My buddy Popeye in California, you can go listen on my Rumble channel, and it's Buzlikos Nomos is my Rumble channel. You can go listen to that 6-hour video and hear Popeye tell his story. He was on a marijuana charge. And he goes to court. Judge calls the name. I'm here to settle that matter for that person. Oh, well, what's your name? Well, I'm led to believe that name is property of the United States, and he hands his social to the bailiff. The bailiff hands the social to the judge. He said, but you can call me Peaceful Inhabitant. And the judge, him and the judge goes back and forth, and he says, okay, Mr. Peaceful Inhabitant. And he turns around. Hold up, Your Honor. Where'd that term Mr. come from? I didn't say Mr. He made the judge call him Peaceful Inhabitant, and the judge dismissed the case. The guy I talked to the other day, his most recent case out of 14 cases, he's won them all. And that's his testimony. I have no firsthand knowledge. John told me, he said his last case, he went to court. He said, I'm here to handle the matter for that estate. Well, what's your name? John. And the judge said, that's it, John? He said, yep, that's the name I go by. It's the name that my mother gave me. Because that's your private name, your first name. And he said, just John, nothing more, nothing less. He looked at the DA and said, don't you ever bring someone in here without a last name again. And the DA says, well, how do I get his last name? I don't know. That's between you and him.
Bravo.
See, you have no firsthand knowledge that's your name. You were born, yes, but you've read it or been told it all your life. So what do you do when you go to court? John Henry Doe. You say, here, you already pled guilty. You pled guilty to something you have no firsthand knowledge of. Which is a sin.
Well, how do you have no firsthand knowledge?
Because you can't remember any of the facts relating to your birth.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
We know you came out from your mother's vagina, but not a one of us can remember it.
I hear there's some babies that can. Those are special ones.
No, they can't remember their birth. The absolute
well, they pick their parents or something, right?
They can remember. The only person
before any of that.
Yeah, the only person that can attest to the facts of the birth is your mother, maybe your father. Mother's baby, father's maybe.
On this realm, correct.
Okay, so we're already pleading guilty to something. We're using another's property without permission. That's what's getting us in trouble. We're claiming ownership to the name that the state owns.
So when we file all this paperwork and try to gain control of that name, that's not doing anything then, from what you're saying.
You're not gaining control of anything. All you're doing is doing your fiduciary duty as the registered agent, reporting to the government so the taxes can be properly assessed.
Okay.
Does the registered agent ever hold liability? If the registered agent does his job, no.
No.
But see, when you go to court, this is where trustee de Santort comes in. You're actually acting as, you're trying to trespass on the rights of the trustee and making decisions for the trust when you're not the trustee, nor do you have permission to make decisions for the trust. And that's what trustee de Santort is. So you're getting put in the spot of liability because you're trying to control something that you don't own.
So I guess we just need to suggest from now on. Make a suggestion. You know what I mean?
Kinda. Well, you can't go in there and say, I'm not the name. Judges ain't going to hear that. Judges will hear that, Your Honor, I'm here to handle the matter for that estate. Well, what's your name? And you give them your first name. Well, what's your last name? I don't have one. Well, Your Honor. Well,
and you could just suggest a remedy. Right, exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah. And you say, Your Honor. When he says, well, I'm going to issue an arrest warrant for failure to appear. Your Honor, you got your evidence that the name is in your possession, but how do you relate to it? That's the question. It's the state's property. So hold up the birth certificate and say, Your Honor, that's the name. Now, is this not the state's property? Well, no, it's yours. Really?
No,
does it not say right here on the top of it, state of what?
Yep. Good defense.
Yeah. He can't deny that. Did not an agent of the state certify this?
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen these guys.
It has the state's fingerprints all over it.
Along with a couple of seals as well.
Now, the one thing I will say that we didn't do, and I recently had this brought to my attention, is did they sign it? Yes. Did they seal it? Yes. Did they deliver it? Yes. We need to send them a receipt for warehouse goods.
Yes.
Our books are open. They don't know that we've received it.
Wow. And then what do they do with the
Jesse,
receipt?
on the other hand.
Well, you can go into that.
Well, go think about it. What do you do with the receipt when you get it?
Well, it's been stuffed in many folders.
Well, just because you don't know what to do with it, what should you do with it? Should you not do a recoupment? File it with the IRS for recoupment?
Proper accounting.
Yeah, because what is a receipt? It's technically a bill of exchange. They gave you one negotiable instrument, you gave them another one back. Equal exchange.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Ding, 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 ding. Sorry.
How do you balance the books when it's a debt-based system? Two debts cancel out each other.
Is that where that other JC conversation talked about the negative entries?
I've heard people doing that. Like they'll get the coupon on a statement and they'll turn around and they'll just put a negative mark behind it, endorse it, send it back. Don't know if it works. Don't know if it's true. I've just heard it. Never tried it.
Okay, I thought that's where you were just about to go with it because it just fit right in with what
now, the coupons, honestly, what is a coupon? Under Title 18 U.S.C. 8, obligation of the United States. That is in black and white letters.
Right.
Easy to read. So guess what? Now the system, I gotta say, the government, they wanted us to pay our bills. And yes, the corporations are double dipping. Why did they want us to pay our bills? So the currency would flow. It would benefit the states. It would benefit the country.
Everybody,
Okay?
right?
Yeah, because it would keep our economy going. When the currency doesn't flow, what happens to the nation? We go into a recession, right?
The heart stops, right?
Yeah. So when we go into a recession, well, how do you get rid of a recession? You got to get the currency to flow again. So they wanted everybody to pay their bills, and they gave us the tax forms to fill out to properly report taxes. But guess what we do? We put our trust in other people, H&R Block. Oh, because I'm going to get back a $3,000 tax return. They give you that menial tax credit to the average family with 1 or 2 kids. Call it an earned income credit, when if you did the W-4 process correctly, you could get back all your credit.
Plus those estate credits. What is it, 11 million now or something?
Possibly.
That he speaks of on
It's
the
possible,
706
yeah.
and 709, right?
That's right. That right there was the final piece of the puzzle for me to say, yes, the W-4 process is right.
Okay, so if you don't have all those receipts and everything, you're just making up an amount that you're providing, right?
Well, I don't use Federal Reserve notes, and I don't think most of us do.
Not
What do we
intent.
use? What do we use? We use a card. And what
Yeah.
is that attached to? Our bank account. We have receipts.
Yeah, receipt, right?
We have a record.
Yeah. Which is the
Bank statement.
one of the variables in the whole equation, right?
Yeah.
I guess I've just been too lazy.
Aaron, you sound like me. I'm a truck driver.
I swear, I'm just like going, I know it's out there, but am I happy? Dang it. But you got to do it if you want to, serve God in the proper realm.
God gave us this country. He gave us the government we have, and we're not doing our responsibility.
Slothing, baby, slothing. Exactly.
Well, also look at the mass majority of people in these law groups. What's the number one thing they talk about? Discharging debt. What is their motives?
Selfish.
Most of them, honestly, yes, selfishness. They want the mansion, the cars, don't want to work. And the Bible says what? We are to work by the sweat of our brow. Okay? So most of the people out there would abuse the system. They would not go work a job. And what would happen to the country?
Go to the shitter.
It would.
Oh
It
my
would
God.
totally burn to the ground because why?
Lack of protection.
The average person is disobedient to God. And this
Yep.
nation is going to be judged accordingly.
Oh, sorry to laugh, but man, it just hits home for real.
Well, you have to laugh because if you really didn't, you'd be crying on your knees because why?
Yeah, I'm doing both.
Yeah, because honestly, think about it. We see the handwriting on the wall. We see what's coming. And we can do nothing to stop it.
Except this right here. This stops it.
We can
The
try.
joining of minds
The
and
only
hearts.
thing we can do is do what we got to do to come out of Babylon, so we don't take part in her plagues.
Right? And do God's will. And that's what I'm learning and that's how I'm setting everything up, is to do just that, so I can help my brother and my sister. And that's
Sorry,
all
can
you
y'all
can
hear
do
me
in
now?
order to make this place rotate properly.
And what was that? Somebody was getting ready to say something?
I said, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, can definitely hear you now.
All right, I had to plug in a microphone. It's a new computer.
Oh, you're fine. Thank God it don't echo, because most people, for some reason, when they use the computer, they don't use a microphone and a headset, and we get this echo.
Oh, it's
So,
completely separate.
Because they're
So-
on their phone.
so what's your questions there, Pod?
One of them was I was asking if anybody in this group follows or knows about Roger's sales process.
I
And-
know of him, never cared to go digging in his process.
Okay. So what's the
I
general?
joined Dawn's group, and I started discussing the stuff because Dawn wanted to talk to me because I was sharing information with her, answering her questions. So she invited me to her group, and most of the people in her group was from Roger's sales group.
That's
And
why I'm here.
I got the most pushback from a bunch of those people at the beginning.
What kind of pushback?
Well, one of the things he pushes is the affidavit process. And I don't necessarily have a problem with an affidavit process if it's done properly. And most of the people out there that do the affidavit process don't do it properly. They do first part of the process, but never the second part.
So would that second part be just what we're talking about,
Proof of claim.
doing God's will, and in order to get these funds that everybody wants, right, and all that stuff, they need to have that mindset to help others, and that's the only way
Yes.
that's going to work.
Now that is actually a true statement, but no, that's not what we're talking about. The average teaching in the legal genre community is that you are a U.S. citizen because of the Social Security number. I used to buy into that. I used to believe that until one day I did a FOIA request with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Office asking for documents showing if I was a U.S. citizen. They come back and said there's no records.
Wow.
Well, that means what? I'm not a U.S. citizen.
That doesn't mean that claim was never filed.
No, I am not a U.S. citizen. We talk about the courts making presumptions. We turn around and do the very same thing.
Oh, yeah. As if.
We
right.
sit there and make an affidavit. I am not this. I am not that. Where is your evidence that you are or are not? What's the maxim of law? He who makes the claim
right.
has the burden of proof. We're quick to make claims on paper with no proof to back it up.
So you have to make them prove it.
No, the burden of proof is on he who makes the claim.
So his process is mostly about, I guess, trying to request a Social Security card saying that you're a U.S. national and not a U.S. citizen. So what is your take on that?
I don't have a problem with that. I know
You
people
don't have a
that's
problem
done
with
it.
that?
No. Look at the U.S. code dealing with the different types of citizenships, nationals, whatever. But
Right,
if
but you were just talking about.
Yeah. What did he say? He said getting a Social Security card as a what? U.S. national, right?
Right.
A U.S. national and a U.S. citizen is not the same thing.
Dual citizenship.
So
No,
you're
it's
okay
not
with
dual
that process?
citizenship. I don't have
It's
a problem
what?
with that. I know people that's done it. All you do is you fill out the information properly and
Do
What
you
I'm gonna get?
change
I love
suggest
you.
and
that, or
make
do you
sure they
suggest a different
correct
way?
you make sure they correct the record.
But what you were saying, it sounded like there's no record to be corrected.
No, you're thinking of a U.S. citizen and a U.S. national as the same thing. They're not the same thing.
Okay.
You have
So
3
what?
different United States in this country. Do you realize that?
I'm learning about that.
The first definition is the 50 states united. What are states? The states are 50 sovereign countries.
Correct.
Okay. And every one of those states, it kind of hit me the other day, and I've noticed it because I drive a truck, but I never really thought about it. But I saw this sign in one state that said inland port. And I said, and it just made it click. I said, wait a minute, I'm teaching people that the states are sovereign countries. Yes, they are. And guess what they have at the border on every interstate? It's called a port of
Port of entry.
entry.
Right.
Okay, so you have the 50 states united. Then you have the second definition, which is DC, its insular possessions and territories. And then you have a third definition, which is it's an if-then definition. If they are being a debt collector, then yes, they are a federal corporation. Because they're not always a federal corporation.
Yeah, because they can be the other, which is, what is it? They're here to collect a debt, and if not, then they're not.
Yeah, if they're not doing a debt collection, then they're not they're not acting as a corporation.
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm glad I got on today. Man. Funny how it sometimes just clicks.
Well, see, it didn't click for me because I was out there teaching Title 28, USC 3002, paragraph 15A for many years that it was a federal corporation. And that's where everybody goes that teaches that. And then I was talking, I think, to Eon, and he said, hold up. I don't even think Eon caught it. And he said, wait a minute. What section? He said, what is Title 28? I said, it's a Judiciary Act. He said, what section is 3002 in? And I go to Westlaw and I look, Chapter 176. What is Chapter 176? The Fair Debt Collection Procedures Act. See, Title 15 does not apply to the IRS because you cannot argue the public debt.
Yes.
Okay, now, Chapter 176 of the Judiciary Act is the Fair Debt Collection Procedures Act. And that's the procedures the judges have to follow. And Section 3001 through 3308. And the very second one on the list is definitions, Section 3002, where it says the United States is a federal corporation. Because when it is collecting a debt, it is acting as a corporation. It's coming in as a debt collector.
And it loses its sovereign protection.
In limited forms, because I actually was on Westlaw looking that up, and the courts have ruled that when it is acting as a debt collector, it does not always lose its sovereignty. Because when it's collecting a debt, it is presumed the debt is valid, and you cannot argue the public debt.
Yes.
You have to be able to prove it's not.
So then when you're in in a court situation or any other, you have to provide a remedy to pay that debt.
Yeah, but what is a dollar? A dollar is just a unit of measurement.
Well, exchange.
Yeah, you just got to give some kind of exchange. I had a buddy of mine up in Minnesota that they won't let him in the courtroom if he's got his bag of rice on his hip.
He brings coffee beans.
Yeah, he carries rice, and on the bag it has a dollar symbol.
I love that. That
No,
sounds like
no,
some
crazy,
Carl Miller.
no, crazy Mark. We call him that because he's smart when it comes to law. He's crazy on the stuff he does. If he gets called to court, he sends a bill to the DA and the judge's house in their personal name. Freaks him out.
That is crazy. And he says it's going to be paid in beans or whatever the hot commodity is at the time.
Lawful money.
Right.
Under lawful money, there is all kinds
Of exchange.
That's
Right.
right.
So, Pastor, do you have a like a recommended place to start that you like? Where should I start researching on whatever you talk about?
The biggest things to learn, in my opinion, is, and they all relate to tax law, and that is the law of agency and trust law.
Okay.
Because why? One, the first thing you should study is the United States Constitution with analysis and interpretation. It's 2,800 pages, and the government puts it out for free. And it will tell you how to interpret and understand the Constitution. But guess what? Nobody does. They don't read it. The most important document in this country, and 90% of the people out there don't even know what it says. And if they do know what it says, they don't know how it applies.
What was that one called?
The United States Constitution with analysis and interpretation.
With analysis and okay.
Yeah, it's you can download it from the GPO. And also study your state constitution, because one applies to you, the state constitution, and one applies to them, the federal constitution.
Well, it applies to the state constitution, applies to whichever party you're dealing with at the time, right? It's not just you as the
Nope.
man.
No, we, the people of the United States, is not the state citizens of the state. It is not you.
Right. We didn't sign that compact. Got it.
It is your rep. That contract is between your representatives and the federal government. We, the people of the state of, that applies to you if you are a citizen of the state.
What makes us a citizen of the state?
It's a birthright.
Okay.
That's where the dual citizenship comes in. Either you're a United States and a state citizen, or whichever one you choose, right? So we have that ability.
You can choose. That's correct.
The entity, yeah.
You can choose, but you don't have dual citizenship. You can't serve two masters.
So
Well,
the other
you're
question
serving
I
one
had-
master, God, but you're using whatever means to serve God. That's the way I look at it.
I take the citizenship a step further. What is a citizen? One who owes allegiance to a respective government.
Right?
Well, my Bible teaches me I'm a citizen of the kingdom of heaven.
Right? An heir to
My allegiance is to God. I'm only sojourning in this land. That means I can't be a resident.
You broke up a lot there.
I said I am only sojourning in this land. That means I am not a resident.
getting those deep thoughts with Jack Handy moments, pauses.
Well,
That's good.
everything in this system of government was based on the Bible. The problem is the people want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They want to, oh, I don't believe in that God, or I don't believe in the Bible. Guess what? Then you're going to be ruled without instead of being ruled within. The government is going to rule over you with a rod of iron because it built this system based on that book.
And just as you have to know the like the laws of trust, and law, these different things, you have to also know that those other entities that help you see those connections, like Carl Miller and then Gene, as you said, and you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And you say Eon as well. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah,
His deliveries. Sorry, go ahead.
I need to call him, see how he's doing.
Interesting character for sure.
He does his
the other
videos
question
on
I
purpose. He does his videos on purpose like he does.
Yeah.
Because I told him when I first talked to him, I said, you do that on purpose. You make your videos annoying, don't you? He laughed. He said, yeah, I do. He said, because the people that are not serious ain't going to stick around.
Right? And some days you do, and some days you don't. Well, in my case.
Some days it's like, I am not in the mood for this.
Exactly. Oh, my God.
Talking to him on the phone, totally different person. He doesn't
Yeah.
act like that. He's gentlemanly, everything.
Right.
Hugo, yes, it'll go up on Rumble once I get it in my saved folder.
Thank you. And,
You're welcome.
What channel?
Speak up a little bit.
What is your channel in Rumble so I can look it up?
Basilikos Nomos. And if you want to know how to spell it, since I'm driving, look up the Greek words for James 2:8, under the royal law. That'll tell you how to spell it. But if you just look me up on Rumble, Pastor of the Way, you'll find it.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing some time here as well on the Man That Eats Peppers, Fearless Floyd show.
So, Pastor, do you have any opinion on the PMA process or the Private Members Association?
It has its place. I'm not against it. It has its place. It's just like just like I used to study the secured party / creditor process. I did it. But it has its place. But I'm of the opinion now, if that name is owned by the state created the trust, the trustees are on the Social Security website, and those are the trustees, and I am not the grantor. Can I build a trust to control it? No. I have no...
Can you shut it down?
Huh?
I'm sorry. Just finish your thought.
I have no right to control the state's property until they give me permission to do it. And that's what's getting us in trouble, is we don't have permission.
So you know Christian Walters, right? Walters?
Who?
Christian Walters.
Never heard of him.
About dissolving the trust.
You can't. Where's the authority for you to dissolve a trust you didn't create and that you don't control?
Because you're a third-party beneficiary?
Okay, you're the beneficiary. What rights does the beneficiary have over any trust?
To bring a suit against the trustees to perform.
Only if the trustees are not doing their fiduciary duty.
Christian Walters brought back the study of trusts really heavily. I'm surprised that you haven't researched any of his work.
Because
He's
I don't
pretty-
follow every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there.
Yeah, well,
If
he is not every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Christian Walters was divinely inspired. Like, that man read so many books on equity. You should just check him out because you're pretty learned. I mean,
Yeah,
I've heard
I can check him out sometime. I'm not saying I won't check him out. The reason
he's
I
dead now.
haven't followed all these different people that other people follow is I
Mhm.
keep my circle small.
Right.
As
Well,
in-
Christian Walters read books, and he did
Yeah.
this for years. He did it for years. So some of the really big trust teachers that are out teaching, they studied. It wasn't like, oh, he has a process. He did end
Yeah.
up creating a process, but it was after years of reading various different types of books. So many
Yeah.
kinds of books. Yeah, which not a lot of teachers today or people who are teaching processes do that. Christian Walters was one of them. He's amazing.
Well, me, I'm like this. I have certain people I do endorse, and when I endorse someone, I have went behind them, and I've spent time on my Westlaw account looking up everything they say to the best of my ability. And when I can prove them wrong, I confront them. If they are accepted of that, because we're all human, we make mistakes. If they're teachable, okay. If they come across that it's their way alone, I stay away from them. And we have a lot of gurus out there that teach that their way is the right way. Do not talk about any other process.
Isn't that called closed-minded?
That's right.
Well, there's different kinds of estates, right? In juridic people, there's the legal estate and then there's the equitable estate. So,
And you don't have the equitable estate.
you don't know what I have.
I
Don't
ain't
make a
talking
claim
about
like that.
you personally.
Right. Well, there is the doctrine of contribution. And if the property of people who are considered foundlings and bastards are held in abeyance, then it makes sense that perhaps maybe someone does have an equitable claim. Maybe not legal, but equitable.
Well,
Wouldn't that be the beneficial?
One, for you to
Mhm.
have an equitable claim over that estate, that name,
Oh wait,
you got
Are
you
you
got to be able to prove it's you. How are you going to prove it's you if you don't have first-hand knowledge? That's your name.
okay. Well, are we talking about a name, or are we talking about statutory business trust that we've been given basically the role of agent?
Well, that's
Service.
what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it
it
is a
is.
statutory trust because it's created by Congress. That's true.
It is.
But
It is a
the-
statutory. It's a charitable non-donor grantor trust, non-grantor donor trust that is governed by the Attorney General, charitable trust. Hmm.
Actually, no,
Okay.
it's not governed by the Attorney General. You're talking about under the Trading with the Enemy Act, the Alien Property Custodian. That actually changed, and the Alien Property Custodian is the Treasurer, is the Secretary of the Treasury.
Well,
It used
the
to be
juridic person comes underneath of the Attorney General, and
It
I know this
used to.
because I resigned as agent for service of process, and I've gotten correspondences back from the Attorney General's offices regarding
Yeah, I
that
mean,
trust.
it's not a problem.
Mhm.
Because the Attorney General is the law firm for the state.
He's actually the parents patriae.
Yeah, because
He's
he has to be the parent of all the abandoned infants.
Yeah, because that's the property that we haven't reclaimed, right? And so when you
Yeah.
reclaim it, what aspect of the name do you get?
Well, here's the question. Are you the infant? No. The infant is
Right.
the placenta. Are you the placenta?
Well, not in the
Well,
terms
I
of
don't
their
know.
laws.
I
It
blew this
is
one out of the water for a couple people because for me and my mom, I've heard this whole placenta bullshit, and
It's not
I
BS.
had my boys on
It's
an
in
island.
state code.
Okay, well, let me just tell you what happened with me. I don't
Very
care
Yeah, I
about the
know
clear.
state
you
code.
actually gave
Okay.
birth. You gave birth privately, and you kept your placenta. And you didn't have a
Well,
midwife.
no, but my
Yeah.
mom and I were in hospitals,
Yeah.
and they listed me, my footprints and my blood, me, as actually not just civilly dead, but like dead, stillborn, dead.
Hmm.
So maybe for other people it's the placenta, but with me, it was actually the Guthrie card and my footprints in the stillborn
No,
register.
just because they put the footprints and your mother's fingerprint on the document at the hospital doesn't mean it's you. Because
The stillborn.
hold on.
Okay. Okay.
By operation of law, the hospital can only record what's in its possession.
Mm-hmm.
If the mother signed papers that she took the baby home and both products of conception are to be registered, the hospital only registered what's in its possession, which is the placenta.
Well,
Okay.
okay.
And
Well, that's
yes,
wait a second. Hold on there. Let me jump in. Let's rip this apart a little bit. So if you go into, I think it's Title 49, could be wrong, but hospitals are, first of all, considered foreign trade zones, 49 in the United States Code. And whenever a woman enters into a contract to receive medical care, she's actually considered and men, not just women, they're considered in a spell of illness. That's in the United States Code too. So if
well,
she's
that's
doing,
also why it says in my birth record that the mother's projected date of confinement was 9/24/73. Because why? Inmates are confined at prisons and hospitals.
right, so if she goes in and hands over the blank power of attorney, which would probably include the durable power of attorney and the psychiatric power of attorney, which is a different one, then I suppose, do they ever actually release her or the baby? But that doesn't change the fact that for me, just to bring this back around, and my mom, we were put on the stillborn registry.
I know that's what you believe. My opinion, I haven't
Okay.
seen your documents. I haven't seen your stuff. I can't
you
speak
looked at-
to it.
Okay, so, but I can, and I'm just
Oh.
saying.
So what's
that
on
maybe-
your baby prints? What's on that document?
Look,
There's a
when I did my presentation on my birth record that I got from the hospital, okay, I played phone recordings from Vital Records. So, one, they admitted to the probate file. Why was it put in probate? The presumption of death. That document came after I did the video. Somebody dropped it in my lap. Okay? Now, I sent my video to Myron Rice. Myron Rice, would you do me a favor? Critique this. Tell me if I'm right or wrong on anything. And he respects me, and he watched my video. He come back and he said, at the 51-minute mark, you missed something. I said, what did I miss? He said, the placenta, and I poo-pooed it. I said, Myron, I've heard people say that for years. Nobody's shown me evidence. He said, it's in our Michigan code. So what did I do? I went to Westlaw. I looked it up. I found it in New York. Just the other day, it was found in Rhode Island. The placenta and the baby have to be registered. Well, guess what happens? Most of the population, it is not a 100% across the board, Lori. I know this. Most of the population, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Most of the mothers leave the placenta at the hospital. And guess what the hospital records?
The biological property.
That they have in their possession that they
Mhm.
used the documents you filled out as the mother to record the placenta.
Yeah, or
So
someone
that's
else.
property
And
has
then
that
the-
the
we haven't
mother,
reclaimed.
and then what did the mother and father not do after they got home? They
They didn't
didn't
reclaim it.
record the baby.
They didn't make a claim to the property, the
That's,
actual biological property that was left there.
no,
Which is
well,
the
they
same thing you
didn't
just said,
record.
Pastor.
Whether they made the claim to the property that was left is irrelevant. They didn't record the baby. So that does
In their
what?
Bible, you're saying?
In the Bible, yeah.
In their Bible, whatever?
But it was supposed to be recorded with the state. Because where do you record your property?
So you went and recorded your?
In
Did you put
UCC,
this?
I guess.
Well, where
Did
do you
you put-
record a mortgage?
You did. You recorded at the county.
Oh, the county, right?
That's right. Where do you go get a birth certificate from?
I have no idea.
Same office. Same
Yeah,
office. But what
Right.
did the
Mhm.
mother and father not do?
A special
did not-
deposit.
They didn't.
They did not record the baby as their property. So
Right.
that's why the
Yeah.
codes come in of the abandoned infant, because the infant and the baby are not the same person. I've read the definition of infancy numerous times to people. They're not the same.
Okay, so you
Okay,
want to tell
that
me how
makes
they can
sense.
grab men and women and drag them in for surety? Then
They let
It's,
you believe you're surety.
no, when they drag people in forcibly with their guns, like the letters of marquee, the people with the letters of marquee. How do they draw a correlation between that? That seems far fetched. If there isn't
No.
in their records, there's no correlation.
Because
I
it's
just
still
You
their
haven't
unclaimed property.
established. You have not established there's no correlation because Lori, you still believe that's your name, but you have
No,
no
I don't.
firsthand knowledge to it.
No. I don't. First of all, don't make any claim that I think that I know it's my name.
Okay, then.
First of
Then
all,
I
it's
stand corrected.
they're organizational symbols. First of all, it's not even English. I know what my calling is, and I also know which person that I'm supposed to inherit from my dad. So I don't do the name game like that.
I don't have a problem with the name game. I did it on that traffic ticket recently.
I mean, it works if you know what you're doing, but yeah, don't
That's
think that that's my
right.
name. I don't know. I'm glad that we're very clear about me knowing that too.
Okay. But the
Mhm.
average person believes what's on that social security card is their name.
Yeah, I
Until
thought.
you point out the sentence on the back that plainly says it's property of the Social Security Administration, and then they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I never saw that. You didn't read
Yeah.
your contract?"
hmm And I remember when I first started waking up to all this, it was very shocking because I always thought, well, this represents me, and it never occurred to me. I had like complete cognitive dissonance, and I guess it would be called functional illiteracy because I never read contracts, and it never occurred to me that anyone would be so nefarious to,
Right.
to set stuff up.
They're not nefarious.
Eh, I've met
What
some-
is the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights? What is it?
Mhm.
It's a
Well, they're
trust
part-
indenture.
Yeah, they're parts of it. The articles in the Northwest Territory. Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's a
Uh-huh.
trust indenture.
Yes, it
The
is.
right.
I agree.
So trustees have rights to create other trusts.
That's exactly what they do. In fact, they have a duty.
To expand the estate.
Yeah, they have to.
To expand the wealth of the trust.
And the
so-
estate, right?
That's right. So they're
Mhm.
not doing anything nefarious. They're not doing anything illegal. They're following the Constitution. The problem
Well, I'm
is
not-
the average person hasn't never read the Constitution with the
Oh, I've read
intent
it.
to understand it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
But
saying?
no,
Now, do
there-
they occasionally pass things that are unconstitutional? Yes.
Mm.
Because you know what? It happens.
Well, I was talking about the bad actors because I'm with you. I don't think the system. The more I've learned, it's like, well, you know, in the Bible, it always says to work it out, like to pick the board
Yep.
out of your own eye before you
Yeah.
pick the speck out of your brother's. So
Yeah.
I always try to look at myself first and say, well, what am I doing wrong? And I've done that, and it's really weird to wake up and be like, wow, you know, my ancestors, like it says in the Bible, lost the way. So there's a
Yeah.
curse, right?
That's right.
However, that doesn't go to say that, and I know this from firsthand knowledge and experience, that there are some bad actors.
There
are.
is, yes.
Yeah, there are actually who are nefarious.
not-
and I know.
See, the difference in me and you is this. We look at it and say this, at least I say this, the system itself is neutral.
Yes.
The
Right.
players in the system, yes, there's good old boy clubs. An
Mhm.
individual might be corrupt, but the system itself isn't. And you know what brought that to my attention? Was
I
my
agree with
first
that.
traffic ticket. My
Mhm.
first traffic ticket that I beat, I was missing a mud flap on the trailer. Now, in the trucking
How dare
industry,
you?
if
How dare you?
if there's any truckers on here, everybody believes in the trucking industries that mud flaps are mandatory on trucks and trailers. Trucks are iffy. If you're hooked to a trailer, they're not mandatory. At least that's the presumption in the trucking industry, okay? But if you read the regulations, there's nothing in the regulations that says mud flaps are mandatory.
So it's a courtesy
So-
thing.
Yes, kind of. But
Traditions and customs.
what the
Right?
states did is the states wrote laws to make it a ticketable offense if you're missing a mud flap. Because why? Anytime there's a ticketable offense, there's a monetary gain attached to it,
Gain.
right?
Yes.
Well, I argued the constitutional arguments when I took it to trial. Now, at the traffic ticket stage, the judge goes and says that, let me see, what exactly did he say? He said, you
You're breaking up.
okay, so he said, if
You
you
break-
have an attorney or attorney will speak for you
Still didn't get it.
me now.
They don't like you telling the truth. They don't like you telling the truth because they keep, or that's just, you know, BS, but your signal's going in and out right when you say all the good stuff.
Right. Out here?
You're roboting. Every third word. It's like Wheel of
I'm
Fortune.
Seems like less than that.
Let's guess. He
Yeah,
likes
right.
puppies. He likes puppies. He doesn't like mud flap regulations.
But he can beat them in court.
That's cool that you listen to Christian Walters. I'm I'm really into the NTT right now.
Right? It's like, I've heard this other one that is another summation or of a recording with him, and it was really spot on, but it's like very detailed in what you have to do in order to, and so I try to do it without having to go through all that,
Uh,
you know,
Well,
with
have you
the IRS, and they said the last correspondence is we need 6 more weeks to figure out
well,
what's going on here.
have you listened to you know, because he had like 300 hours of research. Have you studied his research? He was basically reading and teaching 300 audios of trust.
Well, I've tried to get my hands on as many, so if you can reach out to me, and I'll gladly get some more links on him, because he definitely has some good stuff, and the way he thinks, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Just
I
as
mean, he
pastor,
spent
when he's
15,000 hours studying debtor commerce alone. And I just recently joined a group that's exclusively studying underneath of his research.
Well, this group seems to be more of an action type group, and because we've been through the studying and we know what's being presumed and what's being presumed of us, and our lack of action is our own ignorance.
Well, these people take action, but it's good to know what you're doing, right? Before taking action, like what are your rights?
Well, yeah, but see, in my case, I've just, I've got to take more action, not be so, lazy. But I've done a lot of things and stuff, but making them stick is the difficult part.
Yeah, getting specific performance.
Correct.
Yeah, the execution part is, I think when I listen to most people, and even in myself, has been a really interesting one. And that's one of the cool things about like just studying for the short amount of time I have with CW's group that's still going, is learning how to establish evidence and ascertain evidential rights to make claims, equitable claims.
That is stuff that people need to learn. Because those out there that's pushing the affidavit process, that's the one thing they're missing on their affidavits is where is your evidence to go with your claims?
Yeah, your exhibits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's all the rules of evidence too, and and the different levels of priority, like prima facie evidence, and then once you have the evidence, and first of all, that's the cool thing about Chancery is that it was created because it used to be with common law. They would be like, well, we only have a list of remedies, so now you got to pick your rights according to these remedies. So when the Chancery came in, it was like, no, we have rights, and even if there aren't remedies, some need to be created. That's when you get into like injunctions and stuff like that. And so ascertaining first what your rights are, and then being able to figure out how to actually enforce it and where to enforce it, because of all the different jurisdictions.
People don't even, and that's the biggest thing I see. That another thing that people don't know, they don't even know what their rights are. You got people now that actually make the arguments that, well, prove I have rights. Okay, I said, okay, you don't have rights. Fine, just do what the government tells you.
Proof I have rights. They only have all lefts. That's all they get, are only lefts.
That's right. And that's what hey, they have said that. I have rights and lefts. Now, what I was saying about the ticket is when I got to traffic court and he said that you can plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. I said, I know he's lying because that ain't all you can do. He says, if you have an attorney, your attorney will speak for you. If you do not and you have a procedural question, please ask. So about halfway through everybody there, he calls me up. And the state trooper starts telling his story. There's no DA yet. It's just traffic court. I said, hold up. This is what you said. Oh, so you have a question? I said, yeah. I said, we need to establish the rules of this court. What jurisdiction are we operating in? Now, looking back, this has been a few years ago, so he answered my question. I didn't ask it right. He says, Dinwiddie County, Virginia, the United States. He answered my question. What jurisdiction are we operating in, right? So he answered the question. I didn't ask it right.
Yeah. So is this a court of equity or is this a court of law? Or is this a criminal court?
So being he didn't answer it the way I wanted, I held up the ticket. I said, this is not a criminal matter because there's no grand jury indictment. He said that would be correct. I said, so the way I see this is nothing but a contract. Oh, no, it's not no contract. I said, well, I presume it is, and I see constructive fraud. As soon as I said that, he slammed the gavel down. He said, $50 fine. You can appeal it within 10 days. I walked right outside there. I want to appeal it, take it to trial. So we take it to trial. And this time they saw me coming.
Wait, for a $50 ticket, this is great. You're like,
Yeah.
you guys aren't. I got the tiger by its tail. I'm not letting
No,
go.
the ticket was more. The ticket was probably more. That's just the $50 fine for him bringing that
Yeah.
point in.
The point
Oh,
is,
wait. So
I'm not going to give them any
wait a
money
second.
they don't have a right to.
Right, but so you appealed it. Okay, so this wasn't about finances. This was like just a principle that you were going after this. Okay, I'm with
Yeah, nobody has ever fought the ticket
you.
because when you go look up the annotated statutes, what do you see with the annotations? You see
the
where
real goods.
people have fought you see the rulings and the constitutionality of the code, right?
Right.
So nobody had ever argued this traffic ticket ever. It had
Okay.
never been decided. I'm
Okay,
taking it all the way.
Wait a second. Hold on for a minute, because that's a really important point, and it took me a while. I didn't know that there was annotated, and I was like, "That's bullshit. Why do they have two of these? Why isn't it just out there the annotated version?" So anyway, thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that out. Anyway, go
So
ahead.
you're saying that they record every court case?
In other words, when you go look up on Westlaw, I've got access to the United States Code annotated. And the annotations are all your standing court decisions that are talking about the constitutionality of said code.
So, okay. So in the guise of like Carl Miller, no state has the right to, no state can change a right or convert a right into a privilege. Charge a license.
I'm a truck driver. I am operating in commerce.
Yeah, you have to have that as that entity when you're doing that, correct?
Yeah, you have to know what kind of law you are operating in when you are operating. Okay.
Okay.
So now, me knowing nobody has ever fought that ticket, I say I appeal it. I'm taking it to trial. They saw me coming. I think word had already spread. Halfway through, they called my name for trial, and the DA, 25-year-old lady, probably fresh out of law school. She's the state of Virginia moves to dismiss this upon payment of cost. I said, I'll appeal it. All I said. The judge said, what kind of arguments are you going to make? I said, constitutional arguments. He said, can I get everybody out of here first? I smiled at him. I said, yes, sir, you may. I knew what he was asking. Don't make us look bad. So I'm like, yes, sir, you may. He gets everybody done. Everybody leaves. It's just me, him, the DA, and the state trooper. And I'm making I've done my research. I have the section of the regulations that the state agreed to with the FMCSA for highway funds. That means these are the rules they are to follow. They're not to go above the regulations, right?
Yeah, and everything runs off of those. So I told them
they're overreaching. Yeah. So I made the argument they're overreaching and overbroad. Okay, it's giving the state authority it doesn't have.
Okay.
And then I argued, also void for vagueness. I said, because why? Even the state trooper didn't understand the code, because if you take it at its plain language, when he wrote the ticket, he should have put me out of service, but he didn't. So if he can't understand it, how do you expect me to? So on my constitutional arguments, in court, he disagreed with me. And he said, we're going to dismiss this upon payment of costs. I said, I'll appeal it. He said, what other arguments you going to make? So I switched to contract language. I said, how are you going to hold me liable for something I had no knowledge of? Well, what do you mean? The lady, she just thought she was being brilliant. Well, the code says shall not operate, and you operate. I said, ma'am, let me explain it to you this way. You get up this morning, you decide I'm going to take a vacation. You walk around your car, you check all your lights, you check everything. Everything's good. You get 45 minutes down the road and you get pulled over for a brake light being out and you get a ticket. I said, did you have prior knowledge? She
Nope.
said, nope. I said, that's my point. How are you going to hold me liable to something I had no prior knowledge of? I said, if the state trooper was in the truck stop and I had just started my day and he followed me out on the road and pulled me over, I'd have paid the $50 ticket and went on my merry way. He got me dead to rights. And the
Yep.
judge looked at the DA and said, do I even have jurisdiction to dismiss this without payment of cost? She said, you're the judge. So he did. And I've still got that dismissal. And he met me at my truck afterwards. And he said, you did your homework. So me being polite, I said, was I a little bit right? He laughed. He said, no, you was 100% right on everything you said. He said, that right there told me that even the judges are in a system that they are stuck in and they have certain obligations.
Did
So
you
if
submit your bill?
no,
Sorry.
I didn't know all that stuff then.
Okay.
This has been a while back.
And they didn't know their obligations and what? Sorry to interrupt you again.
Yeah, so that taught me that even the judges are trapped in a system. But if you don't understand the system, they don't have to defend your rights.
Oh boy.
You have to give them what they need to protect your rights.
Right. Otherwise, it seems nefarious.
Yeah. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
What about previous case law saying that they are obligated to protect your rights?
Jeff.
I should have just kept my mouth shut.
What? Why do you keep changing your name? You change your name more than a baby changes their shitty diaper.
All right, I'm leaving it alone.
Jesus Christ.
Just forget I said anything. Okay? Just keep on going. I'm not here.
Jeff, I'm glad you're here. You made the statement earlier about the Trading with the Enemy Act. Have you ever read the Trading with the Enemy Act?
Part of it.
I have.
Maybe not fully, but yes.
Both
You
of them.
have not read the Trading with the Enemy Act, or you wouldn't have said what you said.
Different Jeff said that. That was me.
I've watched Eon's multiple videos covering it.
No, he put a post in the group about using FRNs makes you an enemy under the Trading with the Enemy Act. No, it doesn't.
I read that.
That's incorrect. The Trading with the Enemy Act is a banking act. It is an amendment to the Federal Reserve Act. And it's what started all the trust accounts. And that was before the Social Security account was created. That's not what makes you an enemy of the state. What makes you an enemy of the state is you are not doing your fiduciary duty and driving up the national debt.
Yeah, by doing your accounting.
Yeah, by using FRNs, right?
No, it's not the point of whether FRNs is only one way to do things. You use a debit card. Does that mean you're not driving up the national debt? No. You're not doing the proper accounting.
Yeah, we're not setting it off.
Balancing the book.
That's right.
But actually, in U.S. statute at large, in the 33 modification or amendment to the Act, it does include all individuals within the United States. So they did change it. And it doesn't
I'm not saying they didn't amend it in March 9th, 1933. Yes, they did. But it doesn't make you an enemy of the United States just because you use FRNs.
Right, but in that
But
act,
you
you
have to
are
do it.
individuals within the United States are included as enemies. So the provisions of that act, which include discharge, codified at non-positive law in 50 USC, that includes the individual person.
Do you know that also in the Trading with the Enemy Act, if you are actually not an enemy, you can get your property back?
Under recoupment?
That's one way. But no, the alien property custodian, you have to go to court, and the alien property custodian appears, and that is where the court case goes, and this is in Title 50 also, that you have to prove you're not an enemy of the United States. Well, guess what? The reason you're an enemy of the United States, Jeff, is because you're using the state's property, driving up the national debt in that name, and not doing the proper reporting as the registered agent so the Treasury can balance the books.
All about taxes, just like Gene said.
I know you're right. I got it wrong. I was halfway. I mean, maybe 1% right, but
yeah, you could say using FRNs to drive up the national debt. Okay, yeah, you'd be partially right, but it's not based on FRNs because FRNs is only one form of legal tender. If you want to get down to the basic, simple process, any promissory note and any security, that is the simple definition of every form of legal tender there is.
That creates an obligation of the United States?
Correct. Now, how can the United States settle its obligations if you're not doing the proper reporting, letting the United States know who is using the credit?
Well, that's their job to go figure that out.
No, it's not. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Okay, so we have to initiate that connection.
Is this not our country?
Right.
Then that means what? They are doing things in our name. And we're not doing our part.
Right.
That's why I believe the W-4 process is actually a valid process. Do you need a trust to do it? No. Do you need some special status to do it? No.
Hey,
All
where's
you
your
gotta
first-hand
have
proof
is
it's your name?
That's right.
Say that again.
All you need to know is what is your relationship to the name.
All right.
And
which is registered agent, right?
You watch any of Gene Keating's videos, and what does he talk about? It's all a tax. The question is who's the volunteering party? Is it them or is it you?
Volunteering by not doing your part.
That's right. How can the government know who's using the credit of the nation if you're not reporting to the government who is using it? You said HJR 192 says what? All the public debts are prepaid. Well, how is the government to know who is using your credit?
Unless we let them know. And
That's
then
right.
when you let them know, then they become the hound dog, and then they can go. That's what they're supposed to do. And that 1099 process would work too if things were honorable right now, but doesn't seem that's happening.
No, it's very honorable. You just think it's dishonorable because you don't understand the system.
No, not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's perceived as dishonorable because most people or most entities don't do their part by when they're given these things that we're trying to create debt. We're not really trying to create it. We're trying to do the thing first, like reporting the books before the matter has even happened by trying to buy stuff with 1099s. But if the W-4, it's already bought and you're getting it back that way, recouping it with the estate.
You know Robert Kiyosaki?
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki is one of the white side of the elite. There's a war going on amongst the elite. You got the dark side, and you got the white side. The white side says, let the people have their wealth. They're the reason we are here. The dark side says, burn it all to the ground. We will rebuild it in our image. Okay? Well, what is the white side doing? You got Robert Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone. You got all of these wealthy elite out there trying their damnedest to teach people just the fundamentals of how to deal with money. And what does people not do? Listen. And Robert Kiyosaki said, what's the difference between rich people and poor people? The difference is rich people know how to do paperwork. What paperwork is he talking about? Taxes.
Yep.
Because everything revolves around taxes.
Yeah.
He said he loves the IRS. They his best friend. Those that understand the system will love it. Those that don't will despise it.
And villainize.
Yes. And the average person out there hates the system because why?
Boogeyman.
They don't understand it. You try to teach them, they don't want to hear it. They love their heathenistic ways.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, that is correct. They will argue with you tooth and nail that they are right. And they don't want to hear anything else. They will always point the finger at the government as the villain.
Wow.
And when, guess who put you in this position?
Us not doing our duty.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Good deal. Well, I'm going to hit you up on some on the other side. I got to leave for a minute and just see your point of view on some
Okay.
vouchers that were sent to the IRS and waiting on their response. So, God bless y'all.
You too, sir.
This is still being recorded, so I can catch up at the present time till you're done.
Oh yeah. Once it goes to my save folder, I'll send Floyd a copy if he wants to put it on his channel. But it will definitely go up on mine.
And that's on the
on Rumble.
Rumble, yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. God bless
You're
y'all.
welcome, sir. You too.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the show, Floyd. I see you've joined. I don't know if you're listening. Anybody else got any questions?
I'll jump in. Where's the evidence that shows that we are the registered agent?
Operation of law. But if you must know, you're not the grantor of the trust. You're not the trustee. That means you can only be one of two other positions. You're either the beneficiary, but when people tell me they're the beneficiary, where's your evidence?
Would that not be? I mean, by its mere existence, it wouldn't exist if you didn't exist, right?
No, who's getting the benefits? The state. Who gets the federal funds?
Does this go back to the affidavit of parentage?
It goes back to the abandoned infant. Yes. And the baby and the infant, again, are not the same.
So when you go into court, it's not. You shouldn't probably say that you're the beneficiary, correct?
You can, but he who makes the claim has the burden of proof. Okay, now, can you prove that the United States owns the name? Yeah. Look on the back of your Social Security card. But now, let's see here. If you want to know which section to study, it's called the Uniform Statutory Trust Entity Act 2009, harmonized in 2013. That act, I have it downloaded from Westlaw. 21 times in that code that was passed with an act, the term registered agent is mentioned. And that's not the only place. That's just one example. Every legal fiction has to have a registered agent.
What was the name of the act?
The Uniform Statutory Trust Entity Act of 2009. Last harmonized in 2013. Now, what is the Social Security Trust? It is a statutory trust. Why is it a statutory trust? Because who created it? Congress. Congress can only create statutory anything because they write the laws. Now, that's where it alludes to it, but operation of law is this. What is the birth certificate? According to Bankruptcy and Revised Article 9, Part 1, at the 43-minute mark, this is the Federal Judicial Center. Ms. LaRouche is talking about the registered organization. The guy 2 spots to her right pops off and says what? Yes, and some say the state issues a birth certificate. KW, if you don't know who that is, you can look up a few videos on YouTube. Ken W. He talks about it in birth certificate and you. He got a court order that said that the birth certificate is a state agency. I've got vital records that admitted it is property of the state and a probate file was created. It is not you. You people think that's their name when they have no firsthand knowledge to what their name is. So what happens? You go get a driver's license. By operation of law, what is the driver's license office wanting to see? The name of the organization. Boom, there's the birth certificate. Who is the registered agent? Boom, you write the address down. That's the Office of Registered Agent. Everything is law of agency.
All right, come back. I just was interrupted by one of my friends that I lost their house because of my ignorance. of the law. But so in this case, the probate you're speaking to, how do you reclaim that with the Civil Practice and Remedies Code?
Well, I don't know that you can necessarily claim it, because why? You're not the grantor of the trust, and you're not the trustees. What rights do you have over the trust itself?
Oh, here it says it. If an estate is retrieved or a presumption of death under the chapter. That's
Well, the presumption of death is because why? The placenta did die.
but they created an entity out of it and more funds to run government with.
Because why? They're bankrupt. They need a way to create currency.
Right.
Because why? If not, the country is going to fall to pieces. And we're starting to see that. Because why? This system cannot last forever.
Especially when we're not doing our part.
Yeah. Especially that.
It would be.
Yeah, we had to balance the books.
Yeah. We're not balancing the books.
Right.
We're not reporting to them so they can balance the books. In the congressional record of March 9th, 1933, they said they mortgaged all the homes and all the property of the people of the nation for this new money. In other words, the New Deal. Nobody asked a question. What is this New Deal? What is it going to cost us? And see, if you know what you're doing, they can't hold you liable, because it is the New Deal is the contract. And there has to be what? Equal exchange, a meeting of the minds. There doesn't have to be a signature. That's a misteaching out there in the patriot community.
Especially when they already do their thing with your acquiescence.
That's right. That's what Eon's been talking a lot about, that the contract was the congressional record of March 9th, 1933, and Proclamation 2039.
Edited,
if that's the
amended by the
contract,
legal. Yeah.
if that's the contract, what are the terms? In other words, what was the intent of Congress, and how does it affect us, and what is our part to play?
To run our corporations properly.
That's one way to look at it, but yeah. See, all these corporations that the left complains about, they're not paying their fair share. I love those arguments on the social media. They're not paying their fair share. Why are you not figuring out the rules so you don't have to do it?
Yep, that's why they're put in place, man.
They're following the rules. We're not. Since we're abandoning our credit and property, they're filing 1099 right and claiming our abandoned credit.
That's funny how every time you start seeing some good stuff, you start fading out.
Well, I'm going down a mountain, so that's not a surprise.
Okay.
Anybody that knows where Fancy Gap is, you'll know where I'm at. What is it? The good faith and credit clause. What's it based on? It's the good faith and credit of the United States, which is based on what? The good faith and credit of the people.
Which is based on the good faith and credit of the United States. Right.
No, the people of the nation.
Each and every one of us, yeah.
Yeah.
As a whole. And that's where I guess the public trust comes in.
Yep, and that's where the public trust comes in. That's also where the corporation comes in. And that's why the 14th Amendment, you can't argue the public debt, because why? The
You become an
government's just
enemy of the
trying to
state.
settle it. Yeah, they're trying to settle their debt.
No, but when you argue the debt, you become an enemy of the state.
That's right.
Now, the next step is to implement this knowledge in the proper way, giving it all to God and just living an abundant life.
That's definitely would help, yes.
Right?
A lot of the people out there that I've talked to that have done the absolute best, they don't have a problem going to court. They go in there and beat their cases. They never get held liable. They always go in there with a humble heart and a peaceful spirit.
God will give you what you need, not what you want.
Yep. I've got an email, supposedly, it's hearsay. I don't have firsthand knowledge. I just trust the people that gave it to me because they knew the guy. The guy had an IRS case back in 1970. And he was, this thing proved to me, this patriot mythology guru Guano has been floating around for a long time.
Oh, it has.
Yes, but he said that when he went to court, he didn't file any papers. He didn't do anything. He said, I'm just going to trust God to give me what I need. And the basics, without me reading it, when they asked him, what is his name? He said, I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge to what my name is. Well, what does your birth certificate say? Well, Your Honor, I know I was born. I'm here. But I have no firsthand knowledge to the facts of that birth. It was such a traumatic event, you know. So I don't
My
know if
name
there
is
is a birth certificate or is not one. Well, what does your mother say? Your Honor, it was such a traumatic event. I have no firsthand knowledge who my mother is. I could not pick her out from a lineup of one. And the judge said, I will take all this under advisement and let you know how we're going to handle this. And he said, at the time he wrote the email, he said that was 45 years ago.
when emails weren't even the thing.
But this man was, IRS took him to court for tax evasion. He just trusted God to give him the words he needed, and that's what he basically said. And he walked away because they could not prove, because one of the things, the other thing he said was the DA started off talking about all U.S. citizens have an obligation to blah, blah, blah. And he said that may be true, but I don't think the U.S. attorney has any evidence to prove I am of that class.
And then you come back with, are you disputing this debt, Your Honor? I'm here to pay it.
No, he didn't even say none of that.
But that
He
would be
never
the net.
accepted the name.
Okay. That's cool.
He had no firsthand knowledge that was his name. They can only make you testify to what you have firsthand knowledge of.
Well, in that case, they can say something that's what's your driver license says, right?
That's the state. That's property of the state.
Passport too.
Passport. That's property of the United States. The Social
Right.
Security card plainly says on it, this card, that means everything on it, including the name, is property of the Social Security Administration.
And you're just the beneficial owner or third party, right?
Well, I don't even claim that, because why? I have no proof. I'm not getting any benefits from it. If I was the beneficiary, I should be able to write a letter to the trustees and tell them my need, and they should be able to take care of it, right?
Honorably, correct.
Then why do we run around claiming we're the beneficiary when the only people that's getting the benefits is the state? Who
Because
gets
we're
the
not
federal
again,
funds?
because we're not balancing the books, and they're claiming our tax credits. Exactly.
No.
No.
Who are the
Then what?
trustees? The first trustee is the Secretary of the Treasury. Why? That's the bank. The second trustee is the Secretary of the
The
Department of
state.
Labor.
No.
Why?
Okay.
Because when you fill out a W-2, who's the employee? The trust is. So the Secretary of the Department of Labor has to keep up with what the trust is doing. You're just a registered agent. The third trustee is the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services. Now, why is that? You've heard of Title IV funding, haven't you? That's Title IV E&D. That's family court, child support, foster care. The government's getting, the state's getting the benefits. You're not.
So where's the agriculture come in?
Well, that's where that's where everything was mortgaged. The U.S. Department of Agriculture mortgaged all the homes. The 2008
Oh,
bailout wasn't a bailout. It was a freaking payment because all the mortgages were insured by the USDA.
oh my God.
A buyout.
What? That's new to me. I didn't know that. Interesting.
That
Because
could
the
be
U.S.
a
Department of
between the
Agriculture has everything insured because in the congressional record of March 9th, 1933, it plainly says that all the mortgages that all the homes were mortgaged and all the other property of the people of the nation. Who was it mortgaged to? The Federal Reserve. They had to create a new currency because of the Great Depression. We were so deep in debt, they had to use the gold to pay off the debt.
now that could be considered nefarious.
No. Does the Bible not tell you to pay your debts?
Well, okay. Hornswoggle then.
Now, was there a little trickery? Yes. Because the Federal Reserve leaked to the media about a run on the banks. So guess what happened? There was a run on the banks and the banking system collapsed. And that's where Proclamation 2039 comes in, declaring a bank holiday to put a stop to it. And we have been under a bank holiday ever since. Because everything in the banking system today is all promissory notes and securities. And every single court is operating with a DUNS number, an EIN, a cage code, a SEEK code, a NAC code. I can go on and on and on. Because why? They're operating as banks. You should see the look on some people's face when I talk about this stuff. And I talk about it, and I say, you got a 401k? Oh, yes. They just start smiling all giddy. Yes. I said, how do you feel about investing in your own slavery? And then their look just changes. Because what's funding the 401k? All the municipal bonds, aka those court cases.
So yeah, you said that earlier about that. When you make some kind of like request to the court, and that's where the CRIS comes in because they're handling those funds, and you have to, in order to withdraw them, you have to like present your bill or because I did it for the getting that money back that you get after your house is foreclosed on. They'll give you that pittance. I was going to talk to you about that on the other side, though, but we'll do that later.
Man, the W-4 would be great.
You have to file a legitimate lien.
No, the W-4 process.
But do you think they would get the house back as well? Because she's still living in it. Getting off subject here, but
Yeah. Why?
why?
Because now they have to be liable for the debt. How much credit did you give them? I'm actually starting to see people, not with a mortgage, but with like a credit card or credit reports, doing the W-4s, and within days of receiving the W-4s, whatever was on their credit report disappears.
So the entity receives the W-4 and fills it out?
Now that part I couldn't tell you. I've got to go back and review, because if I remember correctly, there's a certain IRS office you send it to, but I'm not so sure if you send it to the entity also. No, they don't fill it out. You fill it out. You got to get their EIN.
Okay, that's where the W-9 comes in.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And it's not just a W-4. It's a W-4, a 1040V, a 1040C. No, not 10. No, not
Just
1040.
1040.
A 1099C, because you want to cancel the debt.
Right.
A 1040V, which is the payment voucher, so they receive the payment. And there's a couple other forms that go with it. Some you fill out, some you do not.
So that's where we're reporting to the IRS that they're using our credit.
Correct.
Basically. Yeah, gotcha. All right.
Because the IRS is the bookkeeping agency for the Treasury. I mean, the other option is you act as the registered agent, and when you get served, that means even by mail, go research the laws of agency in your state. Myron's the one that showed me this, and he said he used to do it, but now he's an old man. He don't have hardly any bills, so he quit doing it. But he said back in the day, that's what he used to do. He said in Michigan, it says that when the registered agent receives service of process, that he must immediately go to the post office and send it to the principal registered mail. So what was he doing? He would take his bill and send it to the Treasury in the name of the trustee. And I said, wait a minute, you telling me they paid your bills? He said, every time. Never late? He said, nope, never incurred a late fee. He said, I sent him the coupon, and I sent him a letter that I was operating in good faith based on this. And he said, every time the bill was paid. It's an obligation of the United States.
Now, is that something that you would do on a monthly basis or once in a while?
Good.
You
There's
could do it in a
nothing
whole
that
year.
says there's nothing that says you can't. What is your relation to the trust? Is the contract you have in the name of the trust? If you answered yes to that second one, who is the principals? The trustees. That's why I tell you, you've got to study the law of agencies and the trust law. And in turn, you're going to end up studying tax law, because those two are those are all intertwined. And the government cannot hold you liable for anything that you are doing in good faith that you can articulate logically. Hello? And all of it's based on law, not some random process. It's based on what they admit and what's in their laws. And the more I learn, the less I like people's processes. I like the government to tell me how I need to do this stuff. Because they admit everything.
And everybody in their processes is making presumptions.
A lot of them, yeah. Most
Pastor,
everybody is. Yes.
quick question. The Law of Agency, the book you're referring to, is that the Outlines of the Law of Agency by Floyd Meekum, or the Law of Agency, was this author, by Howard Bennett?
I don't know. What book do you want to read on the law of agency?
Whichever one is going to get me closer to the study material I need to acquire.
I don't know who writes the books. I ain't got them in front of me. I just know I've downloaded a few of them from Archive, I think, archive.org or whatever it's called, where the Wayback Machine's at.
Okay.
I mean, you can find them online. They're going to be older books, but the law of agency, all you're doing is naming different attorneys that wrote books that put their opinions on paper, which those opinions ain't necessarily bad. Attorneys actually don't do a bad job, because what are they doing? They are writing the principles out for you. It's the principles of law that matter. Once you learn the principles, you can develop your own methods.
Got it.
Kat, I love you, but today is not a day for you to keep jumping in my lap. She's wanting attention today, and I'm driving. Yes, I got a cat that's a year old and a pit bull mix that's 3. They're 2 peas in a pod in this truck.
That could get interesting.
Oh, gosh. That dog loves that cat.
Did you get your radio fixed, Pastor?
Oh, yeah, it's fixed. My amp actually went bad, and the car toys, when I got down to Denton, Texas, and they figured it out, they said, well, that's rare. I said, what do you mean? They said, that's a good amp. It don't hardly ever go bad. And my cat, that dog will be asleep, and I'll pull on the cat's tail, and it'll go meow. And my dog will jump up like, okay, who's messing with the cat? Now, yes, Cat, you can lay there. She'll lay on my arm next to the window. I don't mind that. Lay right there all you want. But no, laws of agency, there's different books of trust. That'll get you a lot of the principles and teach you the applications and everything else. But you'll never go wrong reading the government's court cases and the government's documents. Your number one teacher will be court cases. Because these judges, sometimes they tell little nuggets of truth, and then occasionally you will find a court case where that judge goes on a teaching rant and tells you the whole thing about whatever they're talking about in the case. But if you're not willing to spend a lot of time reading, you're never going to be as good as you can be at this. Hello, dear. I see my wifey.
So it's just a matter of getting them to recognize, they only seem to want to recognize whatever they feel like.
No, that's what you think, Jeff. You are trying processes that are not applicable to your situation. You're not getting the result you think you should get because, like I've been telling you, you don't know what you think you know. And I told you, I promised you, I will be your worst critic. Because why? I was just like you. When I told you the other day that you were at that stage of I've been done wrong, hear my story, my wife can attest to this fact. She hated that because I did that for over 3 years.
So
Did
I'm
I
trying to
not,
get to the
honey?
point where you are now instead of where I am. So
Then you need to keep your mouth shut, listen a lot, and when I tell you to read stuff, don't start commenting on it till you've actually read it.
yes, sir.
Because what's going to happen is you are going to start seeing, and you're going to start coming back and saying, you're going to tell Jesse, Floyd, me, oh gosh, I see what you're saying. And then maybe it doesn't take you 10 years to get where I'm at. Maybe it takes you 3. Because you're a young man. It's took me 10 years to get here because I can only read and study part-time.
That's why I'm trying to do it. That's why I've been doing nothing else but this for like going on 6 months almost. So
Yeah, but
hopefully,
you also are not
cut the
willing to
turn down.
but you're also not willing to take a break from it and say, you know what, I need to rest my mind. I need to step back and digest. Look, do you sit at a buffet and just keep eating until the restaurant closes? Or do you step away from the table and let your food digest? It's no different for the mind. You've been doing this, according to you, nonstop for 6 months. You can't even digest what you're learning because your proverbial stomach is so full that you keep puking out nonsense. You haven't even rested. I mean, God made this universe in 7 days, 6 days. He's the God of the universe, and he rested on the 7th.
Gotcha.
Shoot, the other day I was on here for 5 or 6 hours. What did I do the next 3 days? I rested. I listened to videos. I even played music, and I don't play music often. I had to step away. I had to step back. I didn't call nobody. The only person I talked to pretty much that one day was my wife. When I wasn't on the phone with her, I listened to videos and pretty much had a Star Trek day, listening to little 5-minute clips that were on YouTube just to veg out and waste my time while I was driving because you have to rest.
Well, I actually do. I actually waste too much time watching, videos that aren't about this necessarily. But yeah, I get you.
Okay.
I made him pretend to be a human being for a day and took him to the zoo.
Yes, she did, and I had a good time. My wife drove from our home all the way down to Columbia, South Carolina, and kidnapped me for 3 days.
Well, I didn't really even have much of a life before all this, so and means are dwindling to do so in the first place. But
By the way, honey,
I'm good.
I'm going to start costing you money
Why?
because I'm going to put a single stamp on an envelope just to drop it in the post box, and it's going to come to the house. Because when I get a stack of bills on the dash and I got enough to fill up some envelopes, I'm going to stick them all in an envelope and I'm going to send them to your house. So you might have to pay some postage.
Well, you doubly suck since you're only 40 miles away.
Actually, I'm more than that. I'm at the 80 on, I'm probably more than 40 miles. I know I'm over an hour away. I stopped at Ray Fiend and I said, you know what? I got too much stuff on my dash. I need to send some of these bills, because Keith had the bright idea of saying, you don't have to send us the bills no more. Just keep them. So we keep them for up to a year now.
My tracker
Why?
says you're 39 miles.
Well, if you put it on Apple Maps, I bet you I'm farther than that.
By the way, I'm not that mean wife. I track him because people do stupid things and he's all over the place.
Yep. I actually have my iPad. I run all my business through it. So my logbook's on there. I have 5 different tracking apps for the brokers. And my wife likes to keep up with where I'm at, because if she can't get in touch with me and she needs to, she's going to start asking a whole hell of a lot of questions.
Well, it was also because one of your co-drivers got jumped and left for dead in an alleyway.
That too. Like I said, if she can't get in touch with me. And this is a business, and my wife is my business partner on the business, and she is my partner in life. So, hey.
I had an ex where her dad was he did what I do. Should have learned a lot more from him, but she was his dispatcher as well, going out to fix the trucks instead of driving them, and something I've thought about doing. But
Tell you what, if you're single, dude, go drive a truck. Go get you a company position.
It's a lot easier than fixing them. Sometimes
Yeah.
Paid tourists.
So I tell people,
Yep.
I'm a paid tourist. I get paid to see the country.
I almost did it back in 2012, and the thought has crossed my mind. But if I got my own truck, I definitely wouldn't touch anything within past 15, 16 years. Anything newer than the 2006 or 2007, I wouldn't
Right
even
now
consider
is
it.
not the time to get a truck.
Oh, I know. I know. I know how bad it is. Everybody's selling their trucks.
We're just hanging on because it ain't going to be like this forever. There's going to be a point where the market levels off. Because right now, for the first time in my driving career, I will say there's not enough freight and too many trucks.
Yep. Which is a catch-22, because it's actually maybe a good time to buy a truck because everybody's selling their truck and you'd probably get one cheap. But I know it's not a good idea because there's not enough freight. But
if you're going to buy it and let it sit for the time being, that's different. To get a good truck at a cheap price, maybe. But right now, the brokers ain't trying to pay shit. My
I
wife,
know.
we've been talking about her getting her broker's license, and if she does that, we're going to start a broker
It's like
unlike any others.
if I were to do it, I'd probably even make a little bit more money than other owner operators because I'd be able to fix my shit whenever it breaks. If I got the
Well,
parts, but
what we're talking
it's
about
travel.
doing is running an open book brokerage firm. In other words, we'll end up showing the drivers all the numbers, not just our cut, but what we bill the customer for. Because one of the things a lot of brokers do is they are keeping so much of the rate. I mean, they're not trying
Yep.
to pay us. They're trying to keep it as close to $2 a mile. And right now it's costing me $1 a mile just on fuel. $2 a mile ain't enough for me to make a profit.
Yep.
Because I got to take care of the truck too. But that's business. That's different. I mean, we can talk business different. This is not a business group.
Yep.
At least not this type of business. So anybody else have any questions before I get off of here and call my wife and put her to bed?
Yeah, I'm still kind of thinking about the best approach when you go to court, if you do go to court. How to walk in. One of the things is not answering to the name, right? Or, just say,
It's not that you don't answer, it's how you answer.
right. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, back in the day, people actually went into court and they did this, that's not my name. Well, that didn't last long. That'll get you put in the freaking loony bin and get you a psychiatric evaluation, okay? The question, because he who makes the claim has the burden of proof. So when you articulate it, says, well, that name is owned by the United States. Now you just made a claim, but can you prove it? Well, look on the back of your social. It's all the proof you need. So you just articulated it logically, right? Well, what's your name? Well, my name is Hugo. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
okay, which is the same thing with a driver license, right? I mean, it's on the driver license itself, which is property of the state, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But it all starts with the social. Well, if you prove it with the social, and then he comes back and says, well, I have a property of the state of whatever.
Yeah.
And the state is a franchise of the U.S., so, I mean, they're one and the same.
Okay. Now after that, once that gets clarified, I guess you would go like, you would say something like you were there to.
There's no
You
liability.
would say not to. I'm sorry.
He's not going to say you're the beneficiary. The beneficiary holds no liability. And if the judge says, well, then, I mean, if you say, well, it is my understanding, presumption, you got to get real good at using the word presumption, because presumption, debate layman's terms, is this is what I believe. It could be wrong, but this is what I believe. Okay? So you say it is my presumption and understanding that I'm just the registered agent for the principal, and I'm to notify them of anything that affects its interests. So, Your Honor, would you please give me a notice? I will be glad to send it to the principal. See, I never went to court. I called the clerk. I filed a piece of paper. I didn't show up for court. they had mailed the letter to the house with the signed order saying it was sealed and dismissed.
Wait, I think you cut
If
off.
you
You cut off when you were saying that you called the clerk and said what?
said when I said I never went to court. I never had to go to court. Okay, I called the beforehand and had this conversation with them.
With the clerk?
Yeah.
So you didn't have to file anything?
I never filed a stitch of paper. I never went to court. February 21st, I got a ticket, a DOT inspection. Okay. My reverse light was out on my truck. My supposed court date was March 28th. Well, I said, I need to speak to the court clerk. Well, there's 3 of us here. I said, I need to speak to the one that manages the courthouse. Thing runs appropriately. I said, well, I'm in possession of a debt instrument. I never said it was a ticket. Okay. I said, I'm in possession of a debt instrument and I need to verify your EIN for tax reporting purposes.
Aha.
She says, well, so she said, well, yeah, you gotta do those things. And I read the EIN. So, well, I can't verify if that's what it is. You might need to talk to Barbara down at the town hall. I said, well, I'll get her number from you here in a moment. I said, my next question is I need to know the penal sum for this instrument. Well, I don't know what that is or how to get it, which I knew she was lying. And I said, so I start reading the instrument number. She says, are you giving me a ticket number? I said, ma'am, if you believe that's what it is, that's on you. I said, but the way I see it is this. It's an instrument of value or a debt instrument, which means under Title 18 U.S.C. 8, it's an obligation of the United States. And then she asked, was I the name? I said, ma'am, that name is property of the United States. They are the secured party in this matter. And I meant to say registered agent, but I went back and listened to the audio and I actually said beneficiary. But what I said after that is where the principle of registered agent come in. So what I said, I am just the beneficiary of that estate, and it is my duty to notify the principal of anything that affects its interest. That's why I said what I meant to say was registered agent, because that's the duty of the registered agent. And she said, can you hold a moment? And she said, yeah. I said, yeah. And then she comes back and says, well, that matter's been sealed and dismissed.
That quick while you were on the phone?
While I was on the phone.
Well, that's why I think that would be an invaluable like piece of information. Like if we like a story like some people just make their own. That would be a powerful document to write down. I was trying to keep up with you and write it all down.
Look,
but
Fearless Floyd did a video on it. It's on his channel. You can go to my Rumble channel and see the signed order.
No, just talking about your conversation with the clerk and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was trying to write it all down, but.
Yeah, but Jeff, my worry for you is you will try something like this and you don't know what you're doing, because am I going to promise you that it's going to work with every court clerk? No.
Well, I mean, I realize that I'm the registered agent. I'm not the name, and I didn't do it the right way the last time I tried to do it whenever I made my first appearance or visitation. I didn't do it the right way.
Look, you still have not grasped the fact that what I just discussed doesn't apply to your court problem. Your court problem doesn't have to do with the state. Your court problem has to do with your ex.
I do have other cases, though.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. It's the only one you ever talk about is her.
Well, that's the most important one, yeah.
So, Pastor, that
Yeah, go ahead.
conversation with the clerk, and you said that it's, or she said it's like enclosed. Should
No,
you have
she said
asked
it was
her?
sealed and
Sealed.
dismissed, and I told her, I said, I said, can you send the signed order to the address you have on file? She said, well, no, I need to verify who you are. I said, okay, you'll have a letter out in the mail next week. She got that letter on the 24th. She must have went, oh shit, because she printed out the order on the 24th and must have express mailed it over the weekend because it was at my house the 28th, Monday morning.
So do you think you could have added a bill for your time?
I probably could have, but I wasn't going to.
That would be something that you could throw on them now.
No,
Because
if I was going to go to court, yeah.
well, no, it still took your time, the phone call, the whole hassle, and all involved from like a fee schedule or whatever.
Nah, I don't think you should do a fee schedule for everything.
Well, I know, but I'm
Because
just
did
saying
I
it
get
could be
the
done.
ticket settled? Yes, they sealed it and dismissed it. If she didn't want to seal, if she didn't volunteer to seal it and dismiss it, then I could have probably turned around and said that I would be glad to come to court, but my time is valuable, and since slavery is an involuntary servitude is illegal according to the Northwest Ordinance, never use the 13th Amendment. Because the 13th Amendment is only public policy. It is not the law. I mean, John Eric Roca, that's what he does. He sends them a conditional acceptance and says, hey, I'll be glad to come to court, but this is my fee. Now, that's the simple version, but he gets into the slavery and everything, too. And
So he could send in an order to extract that money beforehand, right?
No. He gets a response from the court that he doesn't need to appear.
Yeah, I guess they don't like shedding off those dollars.
No, they don't.
Hey, Pastor, I have a question.
What?
Okay, so if everything's working on a presumption, right? And you keep saying that it's not my name. So if it's not my name, I can't be the trustee because it's not my name. And then I can't be the grantor because it's not my name. So why are we presuming that I'm the registered agent? Okay, why do you keep saying that I'm the registered agent when that's a presumption, right?
Because what are we using?
Let me finish. Wait. I'm almost finished. So if we use deductive reasoning in order of operations, and we deduce that if we're not this and we're not that, we can't possibly be that either. So there's only one other position left. That's the beneficiary. No, I can't. And I'm not.
Yes, you can, Jesse.
No,
I've already proven that to you.
Nobody ever told me that there was such thing as an office of authorized agent. It wasn't disclosed. It's obfuscated.
It is right there on your check.
I'm not going to presume any more that I'm that thing than I am any of those other things. So if I'm not those things and I'm not that thing, the only thing left to presume is what? You're the beneficiary. Because that's all that's left.
No, it's not. No, it's
that's
not.
it. I'm not anything else. None of the
No, Jesse, you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
Yes,
I'm
you
not
are
that
wrong.
thing. It's a presumption.
Listen,
you're presuming I'm that thing.
Hold on. I never presumed you were that thing. Do you use the social?
Well, not that. Now that I know what I know, no, I do not.
That's right. Now you don't. When you did, what position were you filling?
The point I'm making is that I never was something because I never knew that it even existed to begin with. So how can I be something? Yes, it does matter because it's all a construct of the mind. You can't hold me into an unconscionable contract. Okay? Sorry.
It's not an unconscionable contract.
Yes, it is because full disclosure was not given and it was obfuscated.
Yes, it was.
It was not. It's been obfuscated. And nobody ever even told me that the office of agent even existed and that that's what I was doing or what I was supposed to do.
They told you on your personal checks It
Oh,
says
man.
what?
They
Authorized
you know what
representative.
the word obfuscate means? It means
Look,
that
you
they're
look
Jesse,
on
you
the.
don't normally argue.
You say they never disclosed it. Yes, they did. Look
They
on the back of the
obfuscated
social.
it. Obfuscated. Okay, they hid it from you out of
No, they
sight so that
didn't.
you would intentionally not know it was there, so that you would not act in that capacity. Okay, everything
Did
is hidden
they
on.
put it on the back of the social security card? Right in front of your face.
Sounding like me, Jesse.
Yes, Jesse, they did. They put it on your social in front of your face that they owned it. And you're
Why are they?
sitting here
Then why
saying
do they
full
hide it on?
disclosure
Why did they
bullshit.
hold it? Why are they not? Why are they hiding it everywhere else then?
They don't. They publish
Yes,
everything.
they do. They hide it. They hide it right in front of your face because that's the best place to hide a secret, dude. Right in front of your face.
I got a
underneath your nose.
question.
They
Can
publish
I butt in?
everything, Jesse. Yes, JW.
Okay, it says that they on the back of that on the stub, they actually call it a stub, which is an interesting word to look up. Looks like a check
It
stub.
is.
Yeah, that stub. It says that the card is theirs, right? It doesn't say that the number is theirs.
When it says this card, that means what? Everything on the card. This card is property
That's
because you
ambiguous.
wouldn't have the card without
It's
everything that's
ambiguous,
on it.
It's ambiguous.
It's not ambiguous.
Well, it's
When it
ambiguous.
says this
It is.
card,
It's not clear
it's
on
no
what it means.
different. It's no
double
different
speak.
than your.
It's
It's
double
no
speak,
different.
man. Read the card.
It
It's
is
double speak.
no different than you having a Visa check card. Who owns the card? Visa. They give you permission to use it. They put a name on it. Does that mean it's your name? No, because you attach the social to the account at the time.
Hey, but Jesse, UCC 3402 B1, we're authorized representatives. Same thing as like registered
Same thing as
agent,
a registered agent.
right?
They
That's not the point
publish
that I'm arguing.
everything.
The point I'm making is they obfuscate it from you on purpose, and then you're saying,
No,
"Well, that
they
card is good."
don't.
Yes, they do, or it would be in plain English and common English that every man could see in clear view on the card, and you would know exactly what it meant because your ass would go and look
I
it up, and
have
you would know the law.
no problem understanding what the phrase means, this card. I have no problem understanding what that means. Because this card wouldn't exist without the name and the social.
That card wouldn't exist if there wasn't a live birth, which attaches me to it.
Yeah,
No,
you jumped my ass
presume it
first.
attaches you to it. Everybody makes the presumption.
You keep telling me I'm
it
the
attaches
authorized
it to it.
agent. I'm the authorized agent. I'm not the beneficiary. You keep dictating what I am in the trust. You keep telling everybody what they are.
Because general principles.
You don't dictate what I am or what position I hold in anything.
I said generally for the average person, this is the case. You right now don't use a social. So this don't apply to you.
No, I don't use the social. My trust uses the social.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so
I mean,
the trust in turn handles everything for the trust. For the social, which means what? The trustee is the agent for that does all the communicating.
Yes.
And it's in the freaking statute. It's in the Uniform Statutes Trust Entity Act that discusses the registered agent. That is just one source. You say they didn't give full disclosure. I call bullshit. Why do I call bullshit? Listen, let me finish. Let me finish. Just because your ass got out of high school and didn't care to read like I didn't care to read, didn't mean they didn't disclose it.
They obfuscate everything. They took civics out of school. They took Latin out of school, and nobody's allowed to give you any legal advice. Okay,
that is the way
that it is. Okay,
that
everywhere
is
you go,
no
you hire somebody
different
to
than
get a
looking.
lawyer for you. It's bullshit.
But that is
man.
Look, that is no different than you looking at God and saying the devil made me do it.
No, is that you want to try to shift all the blame and act like this entity was not put here and it's not taking advantage of you, and that it's not unjustly enriching itself off of you and going out in the world and waging war in your name, and you're trying to say it's all your fault. No, they would be
Do
evil.
you
Evil
have firsthand
would be
knowledge
doing what
that it's
evil
your
does,
name?
regardless of what decision you make. Evil is still going to exist, and it's going to be trying to conquer, and chaos is
Correct.
going to take over. So it's
But
not
look
all
at
my
what you
fault.
just said. You made the presumption that it's your name. You don't even have firsthand knowledge that it's your
I know
name.
what my name is. I am that I am. Okay, I know what my name is, and I know what my name is not. Okay, that is the
Okay.
secret.
Okay, then you can't say it's your name then.
But they
Because you don't
are,
have
because
firsthand knowledge.
dude, they're holding me as collateral and surety, and
They only
they're
hold
using my
you as
intellectual property that was
collateral.
gifted to me from God, and they're justly enriching themselves and going out in the world and waging war. Okay, I mean, what else does one man need to say, for God's sake? The entity
They
is not
only hold
honorable.
you. They hold you as collateral because why? You volunteer.
I did not volunteer to be in this system and have a birth certificate made for me. I didn't volunteer for anything. I was born into servitude, dude. They created something that I had no knowledge of, and if I would have known, I wouldn't participate in it.
But you claim knowledge.
Yeah, I had to go out and get it for myself.
No, I ain't talking about now. Every single one of us, we got up at when we turned 18 and we said, what? That's my name. But we didn't understand the difference between firsthand knowledge and hearsay.
Well,
And
we
then
didn't
when
even,
the
we had
and
no
then
idea. How are you supposed to know that thing if nobody ever shows you? I guess you're just supposed to stumble into the kingdom of heaven, even though you hit your head and you're bleeding. I mean, somebody's got to put you on the
Study to
path.
show
Somebody's got to
ourselves
show you
approved.
something.
that's right.
It's a failure of the
Study to
education
show
system.
thyself approved. No, you're still blaming someone else for what is your fault.
I didn't have any control over who educated me. Okay, who was
But
teaching me
you
how to read and write?
had
Who was teaching
you
me all
had
these things?
control once you became a man to let childish things go and start acting like a man and continue your own education.
Well, I
You
did. I
didn't
did what the
have,
world taught me to do. I went out and got a job, and then I went to college. I
and the
mean,
Bible says you're to be in the world, but not of it. So by your
and
own
I
admission,
understand that.
you
I
were
didn't
of
say I
it.
was doing it right, Pastor. I'm not saying I was doing it right or I had true and correct knowledge. I'm just saying
That's
that there was
correct.
nobody ever to give me true and correct knowledge, and the system wasn't designed to do that. Which, once again, is
No,
going
it
back
is.
to obfuscating. Yes, it does. It does not.
They
It
have
teaches you to be a slave,
no.
not anything else.
They
Slave.
have
That's what it
no.
teaches you.
They have no obligation to give you the correct information.
What are you talking about? Who are they doing it for then?
The Bible
I mean,
says
come
it is the
on.
glory of God to hide a thing. Does it not?
Hold on.
And Kings.
Stop. Both of y'all, stop. Stop.
Okay, Floyd.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Everybody in Texas, because I know from Texas, my dad was a teacher. He taught at the same junior and senior high school that I went to, GC Scarborough Junior and Senior High School, since 1967 until he blew his brains out in 1994. So the curriculum for education in Texas is set by the Texas Education Association. They determine what textbooks are going to be in the schools and what's going to be taught and what's going to be in those textbooks. So we are deliberately miseducated because they are appointees of the governor. And I digress, and y'all can carry on.
So you must be frustrated, Jesse. I get what you're saying. I mean, seems like arguments that you've kind of jumped down my throat before, over making. But I mean, I feel you. Everything you say is definitely right. But we're not supposed to argue, right?
Right. in the regards that at the end of the day, we are solely accountable for everything. I get that. I'm not arguing that point, and because that's the difference between being the victim and moving into the age of majority and saying it doesn't matter whose fault it is, I'm still responsible for it. But to say that there's, in my opinion, that there's no fraud or no deceit, okay, or no
Exactly,
obfuscation,
there is. I agree with you.
it's my fault, is absolutely nonsense, in my opinion. Now, I yield.
Well, the fault comes in we don't balance the books, and that's our duty. That's
We
what
got to study
learn.
ourselves.
That's what we need to be talking about. And the W-2 or W-4 aspect of it is one way of doing it. There's many ways of doing it. It's how they accept it and how you deliver it, from what I'm learning.
Now, Jesse, I disagree on the fraud, and here's why. They do publish everything. If you would have said constructive fraud, I would agree 100%. There is constructive fraud. But to say it's all fraud, no, it's not.
That's what we should use. Everybody should be using whenever they, make claims and stuff.
See, that's the biggest thing that I disagree with most of the people out there that scream it the loudest. It's all fraud. It's all fraud. No, those that don't understand the system absolutely say it's fraud. One of the biggest people I ran off of Zoom one night was Kirk Pendergrass. He's supposedly a constitutional expert. That's what he touts himself as. But on a Zoom one night, I ran him off the Zoom. Why? Because I started proving it's not fraud. Article 1, Section 10, the contract clause. Nobody ever discusses Article 1, Section 10 in a lot of these groups. Because the government has the same right to contract as you do. And you already know there's implied contracts. There are written contracts. There's many different types of contracts. It's not fraud. Is it constructive fraud? That I will agree with.
That's what I was talking about.
Constructive fraud does not require the intent to commit fraud. That it is the fraud built into the contract? That we can agree if we argue it from that point. But you cannot say it's all fraud, because we have a law library around every freaking corner of these towns all over the place that you had the right and the ability to go sit down and study. But what did I care about more? I cared more about chasing women in my first marriage and running around on my wife. I didn't care about studying what my rights were. And just because I don't like what the government's doing, now I'm going to call it fraud and get all bent out of shape when I'm the one that got me in this situation? And that's the biggest thing I hear people say all the time, is it's the government's fault. It's all fraud. Bullshit. Go ahead, JW.
Oh, I'm just still thinking about how could the Social Security, they could own the piece of paper might be theirs, but you say that all the information on it belongs to them too. And I'm trying to, let's think about that would be saying, so every single, there's letters from the English language on there. So I guess Social Security owns those words and owns those letters and owns the English language. No, actually,
That's not what I'm saying.
The IMF issues the Social Security numbers, not the Social
Correct.
Security Administration. So they can't
Correct.
possibly own the IMF's numbers and the Federal Reserve Bank bond number on the back either. So I think you might be reaching a bit to say they own everything on, in, and connected to that card.
No, because without the name and the social, the card wouldn't even have any connection.
What about
I
equitable
can say
interest in And the fact that that number or card wouldn't even exist if you didn't exist. I mean, at least equitable interest.
What did Vital Records admit? They admitted they own the birth record. Ownership means what? That means they own the name. That means it's the same.
But we're a registered agent.
Hold up,
so.
Jeff. So hold up. If they own the birth record and they created it based on the infant estate, and they use that in conjunction with the Social Security Administration to create the trust, that means what? You're not the grantor, the state is. That means the trustees are the legal owner. That means what? The trustees who represent the Social Security Administration, that makes the Social Security Administration the legal owner of the name under the trust.
Well, if you get
Can you be the beneficiary? Yes, but where's your evidence?
But what about when people fill out the L996 and they request a Newman printout, and they get a letter that says that the SSA is the custodian of these records? That letter with the two red records does not say they own the records. It says they're the custodian. And at the school, the custodian was the freaking janitor. Okay, the janitor that doesn't own the school, he's the custodian. He's just supposed to. He's got keys and a mop and a broom, and he takes care of things. For who? For somebody.
So we're doing a performance. We have a job to do, and we deserve compensation, huh?
Equity does impute an intent to fulfill an obligation. We do have an obligation to accept, acknowledge, and return the gift. Yes, and perfect the gift. That sort of thing. But you know, you got a bankrupt government, right? Yeah. How could they be the grantor of anything? How could a bankrupt corporation grant anything? They can't create that trust without your God-given name incorporated into joined your gift.
Name is not the same as the name on the trust.
You didn't let me finish. I just was about to say incorporated with the surname that carries the inheritance since the 1100s. And the book I suggested that you read by Arthur Fox Davies called A Treatise on the History of Names, changes the name by Arthur Fox Davies. You'll find out, that's what the surname's for. That's the debtor to the God-given half of the name, the Christian name. Is your given name. That was given to you. Yeah, it's yours. You own it, man. And so they can't create a trust without it. But it was granted by mom and dad, granted that name, man.
For the bulk of the majority of the population, that infant was abandoned at the hospital. And abandoned property, they can create the trust. They can become the grantor until what? Until the rightful owners come forward. And guess what? The parents never, what have I said? The parents never did their duty and registered the baby because the parents made the presumption that they didn't have to.
You can't have a trust without trust res and a meeting of the minds, A trust has to happen in the mind first, that it can be expressed and then written down. And there has to be res, some sort of real and personal property.
And the state is holding the infant in trust. Go back and read the codes on abandoned infant. The 4th paragraph says what? If the child is identified, and a certificate of birth is found or obtained, it has nothing to do with you. I tell people, do you think the hospital lost it within 5 days? That's not what it's talking about. In other words, if the mother and father ever comes forward,
I'm not worried about all that. I'm trying to zero right in on the fact that you keep saying that a bankrupt bunch of employees of a legal fiction are the grantors of real things.
Is the Constitution Is the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Trust indenture? Yes. Okay. Do the trustees have the power to create other trusts? Yes.
Do they have the power to create a placenta or a baby or your given name? The three things that might have been granted by mom inadvertently at the hospital? No.
They have the right to create a trust for abandoned property.
But they didn't create the property. That was
No, they
granted
didn't
by
create the
mom.
property. The parents abandoned
He
it.
creates own, right? Well, did you create the baby? Must be the owner. Somebody might be a custodian of the records. That doesn't make them the grantor and the owner.
And
You know, they're
does Vital
custodians.
Records record a baby? No. They record an event. And the event was the abandoned infant.
Oh, there's
Or
probably
the
more than one
infant
event.
decedent. Okay.
There's probably
So
a
the
few different
decedent.
events. Yeah.
Okay. So the infant was abandoned. They recorded an event. And the state, being the owner, because why?
That doesn't
The
make
mother and
them
father hasn't come forward.
They couldn't record jack shit unless the informant gave them the information to put on the form to create the infant. Okay.
And the
So
informant was informing on what? That she witnessed an abandoned infant. The informant isn't the mother. The informant didn't never claim the property.
Can I step in?
is the mother was the informant? Most definitely. Yes, she was.
Yes, she was the informant, but the informant is one specific title. Mother is different. Okay.
Well,
The
we
mother
know
and
that.
the informant are not the same.
Yeah, we know that. Point being.
Okay. So the informant told the state, hey, this abandoned infant. Well, the state goes and says, well, shit, we
The
got another
informant.
abandoned infant that we got to take care of. So
No,
what do
no,
they do?
look,
They place
no.
the infant in trust.
The
I think this
informant gave
puts
information, man. Without that grant of information, including the baby's name, there can't be anything they can record. There can't be anything they can have a record to be the custodian over, unless mother granted the information. All she has to do is write special deposit on there. All she has to
All
do
three
is
paths can accomplish the same thing, man. All three paths can accomplish the same thing. Whether you're the beneficiary, the grantor, or the custodian, or the authorized representative, it can accomplish the same thing, and
Jeff,
like not be held as surety.
Jeff, you are not the grantor for the estate.
I'm not. Hell, I'm the custodian. I'm the authorized representative. I can just go in there and handle my affairs in commerce and not be held as surety for it. I mean, and get compensation for before we go performance. I know. So I'm saying either way can accomplish the same thing.
But you're never the grantor of your estate.
Okay, I'm the authorized representative. I'll just handle my affairs in commerce. I know. I don't claim to be the grantor, or like I finally see like all three paths can get to the same point where you can take care of your affairs in commerce honorably.
Three paths, Jeff.
Okay, maybe not all three paths. I'm the authorized representative.
Hold on, stop, Jeff. You're talking like you know what you're talking about again. Stop it. Did you create that estate?
No, I did not.
Then you're never the grantor. You can't say all three.
I'm the authorized representative. I'll just handle my affairs in commerce.
I've said all along you cannot be the grantor, you cannot be the trustees. The only offices you can fill is either the beneficiary or the registered agent.
Yep.
It is a
And
statutory trust. And under the Statutory Trust Act, there are 21 instances of the registered agent being talked about in the Trust Act. In the Statutory Trust Entity Act, the Social Security Trust is a statutory trust. Why? Because it's created by Congress, who can only create statutes.
I got it. I'm the authorized representative. I'll just handle my affairs in commerce. I will have my debts taken care of, and I get it from like, okay, only one angle because I'm the authorized representative, but that means they are holding me to a performance and that deserves compensation. I mean, all three ways, even though there's only one or two, whatever, but all three ways can accomplish the same thing. So I don't see the argument between like over.
Yeah, and Jesse, don't you ever jump down my throat again. Because honestly, all I've ever said is when you claim you're the beneficiary, where is your evidence? I've never said you're not. I just said, where's your evidence? I told a lady today that she says, well, I'm the beneficiary because I get benefits. I said, okay, write a simple letter to your servants and just ask them a simple question. Am I the beneficiary? If they write you back and say yes, okay, you have evidence. See, we're so quick to make claims, but we have no documentation to back it up.
Yeah, like you said, I guess if you make a claim, it's your burden to prove it, right?
That's right.
Now, I've got a receipt, you guys, from Vital Records, and it says that I'm the registrant.
Now that you did a different process, JW. That's very big evidence in your favor. That is smooth. I have to give you that.
And it says here, one who registers or is registered. So, I mean, sure, there's a registrar because but we're supposed to fill our own private office of registrar as well.
Correct.
That's why you could get a firm registered mailing book, they call it, and a firm accountable mailing books. Right. And here's another difference. A person who registers or is registered, a registrant is a person who formally entered along with others in a register and who obtains certain rights thereby. Commerce, a person who registers a trademark or patent.
But JW, here's the thing.
Can I be the registrant and a mere registered agent at the same time?
You can hold multiple hats. Judges wear multiple hats. Why can't you?
Different entities, right? But I'm really interested in that, whatever that process you're talking about, JW.
Now, JW, you've done your process and you've done things that most people haven't. The thing I am talking about and the points I'm getting at is really for the average person right now, because the average person is not to the point you're at, JW.
Well, then, but we have to let them know that, it's like, to say resign as a registered agent. Okay, great. That's different than expressing a trust. To me, to say, hold on. To me, just to say to resign as a registered agent, you might as well be saying walk away from your estate and inheritance. Because if you don't follow up with, okay, we agree then. Okay, great. Yeah.
I agree with you on that, and I was mistaken. I will be quick to admit it when I was saying that.
Awesome.
I wasn't pushing the resignation. I was saying I know people that done it because I wasn't one to say that you should resign.
Here's one way to think about it, brother. The word resign and the word reassign are very, very, very similar.
Yes, they are.
And an adult name change of assignment is an assignment of the interest in the block letter name of the minor account on the Social Security to a new name that we create. And we're the registrant. And I don't know. If I talk about it, then I got to help teach people.
Well, actually, I was having a conversation with a guy the other day. He agreed. He said, you got to correct the information on the certificate of live birth. For example, you got to correct the birth date. The birth date for the registered organization was the recording date or the filed date. Okay, so you got to make that match on that document. And he said he said something I've been pondering. Then you got to go get your birth record from the hospital, which is not always easy. It requires you to do some reading to find the evidence you need for the hospital to go find it. Because sometimes they'll give you an excuse. They'll say, oh, it's been destroyed. Well, who gave you permission? Oh, we didn't need it. Or we had to get
And
permission from the health department. Or we had to do this. Okay, where's
but
your evidence? Okay,
the legal
now,
definition
let me
of
finish.
destroyed. The legal
Well,
definition of destroyed does not mean we burned it, threw it away, and it's gone. It just means
yeah.
altered for a different purpose.
Yeah, that's can be one definition. Okay, but the other thing is he said you also got to create the private birth record where you put all your information on it, like your family birth record, not necessarily in the Bible as some people say. Okay, so and it has your birth date. That is going to prove the separation between the two entities, and then have your parents gift you that estate. Now you've got all three records, because what does the codes say? That both products of conception must be registered. Well, one is, the other one is not. So they're letting you presume that you are it when you are not. And that goes back to what the Supreme Court has said. You have the right to declare who you are at any time.
Allude to the fact that you can claim those things that have been put in your name at any time as well.
Now, I have heard there are people that have gotten paid out from the trust, but those people that have reached that level, you're not going to see them in the public. You're not going to talk to them. You're never going to hear about it. Because if they talk about it, they will not be around no more.
I kind of missed what you were talking about before, Pastor. Like a specific thing to look at.
If you specific thing to look up.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about a code or whatnot, wherever you can claim to be or claim something. I just missed it.
I gave it to you more than once. I said the Uniform Statutory Trust Entity Act of 2009, last amended in 2013. I said that one is the one I told you about that actually 21 times discusses the registered agent in the act. Because what is the Social Security Trust? It is a statutory trust.
Gotcha.
Every legal fiction has to have a registered agent.
And it would be one of our entities that we create, like you were talking about the other day, wherever you create the trust, and then you create an LLC, which is a trustee for the trust, and then
the LLC, you can do it that way. Yes, you can. I actually think that's actually the better way to go. Instead of you being the agent for the trust, you appoint
never
an
sure
LLC, and then the LLC holds all the liability of the trust.
Yep.
See, where the secured party creditor process says you control the trust, well, the object is to not have liability. So how do you put another layer of protection to get you one step closer to being in the private? You actually appoint an LLC to be the trustee. And then you, as an agent of the LLC, sign everything in the name of the LLC to handle all trust business.
See, I do take notes. I'm learning.
Nonprofit to be that trustee.
Yeah, nonprofits, yeah, everything.
It's just time to put action behind all these notes.
Well, Jeff, you got a lot of reading to do because you've got to learn how to manage a trust. See, having a trust and managing the trust is two different things.
That's what I'm trying. I mean, it's like I know what needs to be done. It's just like the way to do it, and the right way to do it.
And then you don't know then you don't know what to do. And you shouldn't try to do it until you know how to enforce it and manage it. See, a lot of people go out there and rush to fill out paperwork when they don't even know how to defend it. And then one day they get in trouble and they're up in court, and what happens? They just get ran over.
Still here studying to show myself approved.
Yes. It requires a lot of reading. It does. JW, I will say I respect JW. He's got more knowledge than I do. I don't know how much knowledge, but he definitely has more knowledge than I do. He's done things I haven't done. He's got a document that says he is a registrar. Holy crap. First I heard of that.
Registrant.
Registrant, whatever.
And then it lists all the banknote numbers for each certificate of birth, and it says these are your banknotes.
That's right. I've seen that document.
So for 4 years, I'm going to study what to do with a banknote. Don't want to jump off too soon. Yeah.
I got to talk to Dee again. Dee discovered down in Georgia where she's at, there is a private bank in her community down in Macon.
But brother, you can be the trustee and the beneficiary all at the same time if you set up your irrevocable living trust.
You can't be the sole trustee and sole beneficiary, though.
Okay.
No, you can't. That's the doctrine of merger, and the trust collapses. You have to have one
but you're not
of one of the offices.
On the public side, you're the trustee. You're not going to say you're both at the same time and collapse it, but in your trust indenture, it names the beneficiaries, and it's going to be you again.
You can use the entities
that right there, based on my research and everything I've ever seen, that right there will make your trust collapse because that's the doctrine of merger.
Well, that's the thing that Christian Waters talks about merging those two titles, and then that collapses the trust. And then you take that, instead of directing that and putting that back into the debt side, you just keep it the way it is. And instead of them getting the profits, you skimming off the top, then you send them towards your LLC or wherever you're going to put it. In my case, the nonprofit.
But what if the name of the beneficiary is surname, comma, given name, not first, middle, last? Now, merger is when everything is in the same one and the same name, just like the definition I've thrown in there. I know that says the confusion of debts. It's when they all merge into the same name.
Well, it's just so much easier for me just to make my wife and daughter the beneficiaries and be done with it.
But I'd rather be there as the attorney in fact for the trustee if I'm going to be, handling business on the public side.
Well, that's if you are the trustee, but guess what? If you have the LLC in place and you as the agent of the LLC, you can be the attorney in fact because the LLC is the trustee.
I'm not sold on that.
The LLC.
I'm not really sold on that yet. That's another layer of complication because I know that if you look at Weiss Concise Trustee Handbook on page 8, paragraph 2, it says that a natural person is an expressed trust. It doesn't say it's an LLC. Now, you look at the Florida Constitution, it says that the Bill of Rights is for natural persons.
Now, I saw something today, And I had to save it because you brought up natural person. And the only reason it makes me think of it is that definition of a natural child. A natural child, a bastard, a child born out of lawful wedlock, and I could go on and on. I said, holy crap, a natural child is a bastard?
Yeah, my old
So would
old
a natural person kind of have maybe something similar?
No, because look, an express trust means you're not lost beyond the seas anymore. And like I say, if you have a decree you can take it to the SSA, and you have now a live nubitent. So you're no longer a tenant for a term less than life on the estate. You become a tenant for life. So I don't, but the word child always meant chilled, like chiropractor starts with a CH, but it's pronounced with a K sound. There's this old dictionary floating around you can find called the Da Vinci Dictionary that gives several examples of how chilled or killed is where the word child comes from. And so when you read about Herod numbered all the children under age 2 or killed them all, to me, I'm seeing, okay, they gave them all birth certificates. Didn't literally slaughter them, Killed them civilly dead. Civilly dead, yeah.
Yeah, civilly. Yeah. It's all about civil death. So, well, I'm going to have to hang it up because I need to call my wife. So, y'all have a wonderful night. And I might be back on here in a little bit.
God bless you and safe travels.
Do what?
I say God bless you and safe travels.
Oh, thank you. And I will do my best not to run over no idiots out here. Well, so far, the rain ain't messing up people too bad.
You're going to call the mother of your natural child. Okay. You read that definition to her?
Yeah, you saw it in the group too, huh? I had to save that picture. That's what made me think natural person. That word natural and was applied to child, and it means a bastard. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I think I've got a screenshot of a definition out of the USC or UCC, one of them that I think it was less than advantageous or an adverse definition of the natural person. So it's just a matter of finding it.
Well, I've seen the other definition where it says anytime we say person, we mean infant decedent in 1 USC 8.
Yeah. And a person is a corporation in all senses of the word.
And he has no respect for persons, like any kind of person. So.
Well, a person can be a trust. It can be a bunch of different things.
Well, I'm just talking about in Title I, when you read the definition of person, and the only word that they play tricks with is the word individual, because an individual is also a corporation. So, but y'all have a good night. If y'all are still on after my wife goes to bed, I will probably jump back on.
Hey, JW, can we cover what you were talking about? Like your process of like becoming the registrant?